All right, guys, it's oops, excuse me. It is a little past 9:30. I think we'll go ahead and get started if I have everybody in the room. Let me check on the commissioners. Yeah, I think we do. Though I can't see the meeting room. I don't know if we can pop up there.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh, there's Steve.
Awesome. I see you guys. Just
Just
Steve, just lonely old Steve representing the room. All right, well, we will go ahead and convene. This is the Oregon State Parks and Recreation Commission business meeting for February. We will go ahead and start moving through our agenda, starting with welcome and introductions. I'll go first and then I'll pass it to the next person I see on the screen, and you guys can just keep passing it around. Liz Hill, Commissioner from Congressional District 2, chairing the commission. And I'll move over to Stu.
Hi, Stu Spence, representing east of the Cascades. How about you, Dave?
Good morning and greetings from Amsterdam. It's Dave Perlo from Congressional District 1. Happy to be here. If I'm turning my video off, I'm saving my stream. It doesn't mean I don't like you.
Oh, thanks for joining us all the way from Amsterdam, man. Lucky. That's amazing.
Be back tomorrow.
Oh, how's the weather over there?
It's Amsterdam rain, so that's why they got the dikes.
Yeah, well, you're not missing anything. It's raining in Oregon too, so. All right.
Kicking over to Commissioner Zuma.
Hi, everyone. I'm Betty Izumi, and I'm the commissioner representing District 3, and I live in the Portland area. And I'll send it to Joel.
Commissioner Condor, Congressional District 5, and I'll pass it over to Commissioner Spence.
I think we did Commissioner Spence. We'll go ahead and pass it to Commissioner Griggs,
no.
who's in the room today.
Hey guys, Shane Griggs. You'd think I know which congressional district, but I know it's not 1, 3, 5, or 10. And I'm in Salem.
Wonderful. And then if we can just go around the room to understand who's in the room there in Salem, that'd be helpful.
Oh, counterclockwise. Steve Shipsey from the Oregon Department of Justice, and I'm counsel to the commission.
Good morning, everyone. Stephanie Coons, Interim Director for Oregon Parks and Recreation.
Good morning, Suzanne Harpel. I'm the Director for Human Resources.
Good morning, Matt Rippey, Deputy Director for Field and Community Services with the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department.
Good morning, Kristen Jones, Strategic Initiatives Director.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Walker for OPRD and Real Estate Services, Park Agent.
Good morning, everybody. J.R. Collier, Deputy Director of Central Business Services here at OPRD.
Good morning, Denise Warburton, Executive Assistant to the Director and Commission.
Good morning, Katie Gauthier, External Relations Manager for OPRD. And that is it for the room.
Okay, thank you, Katie. All right, moving on, I need approval of the November 2025 minutes. Hopefully folks had a chance to scan those, but I'll entertain a motion if I can get one.
So moved.
We have
Commissioner Spence.
Thank you, Commissioner Spence. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Izumi, thank you. All those in favor of approving the November 2025 minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, so approved. We also need to approve the December special meeting minutes the December meeting that we had. So I'll entertain a motion for that as well.
So moved.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Condor. Can I get a second?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Commissioner Perlow. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, no. Seeing none.
I
So-
was not at the special meeting. Do I just abstain?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
a
you
good
could abstain.
Yeah, I
That would
think
be
this
Okay.
abstention is a good one.
Okay.
So we would record
So-
it as.
Yep, let the minutes reflect that Commissioner Izumi is abstaining from this vote. Thank you for flagging that. All right, moving on. Approval of the 2026 agenda. we are going to remove number 9B under rulemaking. This is the rulemaking on unmanned aircraft systems in the park. We're going to move it to the April agenda just to provide staff more time to analyze and share with the commission the comments that came in, which I think closed just a week ago. So unless there are any concerns with that, I'll go ahead and
Was 5B pulled too?
Smith Rock. I don't think so.
Or the Browns were, okay.
5B, is that still? on the
That's,
Yes,
Yes,
yes, we're still doing.
it's still.
Okay, great. So the only change to the agenda is removal 9B, use of unmanned aircraft systems in parks and the ocean shore.
Right.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion on approval of the agenda with that one removal.
Move to approve the agenda with the one removal.
Thank you, Commissioner Izumi. Can I get a second on that?
Move to second.
Thank you, Commissioner Perullo. If there's no comments or questions about that, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, hearing none, approved. Wonderful, thank you all. So let's move on. Next on the agenda, we have public comment. Katie, do you know if there's any public comment today or any?
Chair. Yeah, Chair Hill, there was no one signed up for public comment and we received no public comment, written public comment.
Okay. All right. Moving on then to agenda item 3, director's update. I'll turn it over to Stephanie.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm actually excited to have the opportunity to talk about our 25-27 strategic plan. So right now, Parks, we're at a pivotal moment where aligning our vision with our actionable strategies is essential for our long-term success. So because of that, pleased to report that the implementation of our strategic plan is underway. And that's pretty huge for just any state agency, but especially ours. So we're marking a key step towards our goals. So this strategic plan, I'm just kind of waiting for it. The plan represents more than just a roadmap, but it's a commitment to innovation, operational excellence, and then our sustainable growth. Also, our strategic plan reflects valuable input and expertise of our employees. So it wasn't just the leadership team who came up with this, but it was employees from across the department. The plan reflects our core values, current challenges, and positions us to seize emerging opportunities. So together we'll transform these strategies into measurable outcomes that strengthen our organization and deliver value to the communities that we serve. So we've identified 5 key strategies that I'll just hit on just really briefly. The first one is sustainable operations. And really, we're looking at creating long-term value and resilience with our goal of build reliable systems and efficient structures to reduce operational cost and protect revenue stability over time. The next one is partnership revenue. So strengthen financial stability and extend organizational impacts. And we'll do that by increasing partnerships to expand revenue while considering returns on agency investments. So what we want to do is become more reliable and consistent, saving us time, reducing surprises, and protecting our revenue. The next one is equitable access and engagement. So these are critical because they ensure inclusivity, fairness, and long-term organizational success, with the goal of fostering equitable access and engagement within parks and programs. And then engage workforce. So our employees are the driving force behind turning strategy into action. The goal would be building a stronger, more engaged workforce by actively participating with staff on career development, investing in skill building and training, and fostering a culture of belonging and shared success. And the next one, which is our fifth priority, is tribal relations. So we want to ensure respect, collaboration, and shared stewardship of resources and cultural heritage, with the goal of supporting stewardship decisions built in partnership to reduce risk, improve outcomes, and strengthen long-term trust. So our strategic plan, it's a living document. And we're gonna pull it out often. We're not gonna let dust settle on it, but we're gonna pull it off and make sure that we're monitoring and tracking progress to ensure our success. And then we're also gonna be providing tools for our employees to make sure that they see the great work that they do every day and how it aligns to what the strategic plan offers. So that's just a high level of what's going on. I was gonna see if you had any questions, any thoughts about it.
I'll open it up to the commission if anybody has questions on this piece. I don't think so. Doesn't look like it.
And it's just an update. We want to just make sure that you're aware of the things that we're doing to make sure that we are successful today and then for the future as well. So alongside implementing our 25-27 strategic plan, Sarah Head, who's our CFO, will come and talk to you later about revenue and expenses. But since you're all aware that we've done some fee changes, I've asked, and we want to keep our budget on our radars. Katie's going to join us and share some of the anticipated impacts of some of the fee changes.
Thank you, Interim Director Coons. Katie got here to talk about some of the changes that we have started to address our financial sustainability. First is the pausing of some of our large-scale construction projects. We have put a hold on $5 million worth of our facilities investment funding for this biennium and paused some of the general obligation bond projects. So we've paused projects at Smith Rock, Kam Wah Chung, and then Champoeg. The remaining projects will take up the rest of the general obligation bond funding that we have. So we will utilize all of those funds, but we've paused those 3 projects for now. We are streamlining agency operations to look for efficiencies. We are beginning park assessments, programmatic assessments for all of our agency programs, and then facilities assessments, looking at all of our assets to look for efficiencies. And then we've paused a new hiring for around 90 days for new hiring to provide some vacancy savings. And we're still looking for public-private partnerships. We have a sponsorship and collaboration policy that is being developed and working to review all of our commercial activities. So looking at concessions and commercial use within parks and how we can maximize revenue there and look at visitor opportunities that would be enhanced by more public-private partnerships. And then most significantly, looking at park user fee increases. And I wanted to cover what some of those have been over the last year or so to remind you where we've been, and then give you kind of the very early phases of what we have seen. So for parking fee changes, we did remove the free parking waivers for the day after Thanksgiving and January 1st. So for 2025, we removed the day after Thanksgiving, and 2026, the January 1st. And in 2025, we did increase the daily rate from $5 to $10. We've added an out-of-state 25% surcharge. And then beginning this year, January of 2026, we increased the annual permit price from $30 to $60 and are no longer selling the 24-month permits. We still have the option of doing that in the future, so it's still in rule, but for this year, we are not selling those. We've added, you may remember, for those of you who've been on the commission longer, The commission changed administrative rules so that a parking fee is assessed at all state parks, but it's waived at most of them. In the past, we had about 25 parks where a parking fee was actually charged. In October, we added 22 additional parks, and beginning March 30th, we will add an additional 22 parks. So that will bring us to 68 total parks that are assessing the parking fee out of 250. And then for camping fee changes, we added an out-of-state surcharge on all sites and facilities. We had one on RV parks, sites, but added to tent sites, cabins and yurts, all of the buildings. Increased fees around amenities for extra vehicles, boat morages, and showers for non-campers. We still do not charge campers for their showers. Beginning at the end of March, we will have a $10 fee at 19 dump stations.
And
And
Katie,
then-
does that dump fee, is that for everybody folks who are camping at that spot
If
as
they
well?
are camping in a full hookup site, they would not have to pay a dump station fee, but if they were camping in a partial hookup site, then they would pay the dump station fee.
Okay, thank you.
Because of the price difference between the full hookup and the non. Commissioner Izumi?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I'm just, if I remember correctly, there are users, RV users at nearby parks that are able to use dump stations. Is that correct? Or that have?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct. We have not charged a dump station and anyone can come in and use dump stations.
Okay, so will the $10 fee be for anyone, including people who aren't staying at the park?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then already in our reservation system, so people who have been reserving for the last few months have seen these rate increases, but beginning May 1st of 2026, we increased the summer rates at the busiest parks. Tent sites will be $29 plus tax, $52 for full hookup sites. And then those rates will also apply year round on weekend nights. And cabin and yurt prices were increased year round to $72 for rustic and $129 for deluxe cabins and yurts. So lots of changes. The impact of these changes, it's really early. So these are some very preliminary numbers, but we'll give you a sense of where we are. And Sarah Head will go over the budget in more detail, but this is just a preliminary idea of things that have happened since many of these increases have gone into effect. Overall, park user fees are forecasted to increase by $14 million for this biennium. This includes the new parks where a fee waiver was removed so that fees are charged. That number is lower because they haven't been gone through the whole biennium, so it's a partial biennium. We would anticipate ongoing that number would increase. The removal of the free parking days is estimated at just over $40,000 in revenue. And then the out-of-state surcharge for overnight camping, it's $2.6 million. The addition of the out-of-state surcharge, RV sites represent the most sites we have, so it doesn't show as much revenue because the RV sites already had the out-of-state surcharge, and then parking out-of-state surcharge. But the full effect of these will really be shown during future biennium. And this is just an estimate, so knowing it's a very rough estimate, but does give you a sense of the impact. Are there questions on this?
I just, probably more of an observation. I'm assuming the assumption is that the same number of people will attend these different sites as currently, but some people may choose to opt out and not go because of the increased cost. So that's the variable that I think you're saying that you really can't determine until a full buy-in.
Correct, and we are watching closely. We have our market analyst who's watching what our reservation looks like, and he's looking at reservations now for the summer compared to previous years, and it's looking good. We're not concerned, but it is something that we watch. By instituting out-of-state surcharges, we do see a decline in the number of people coming from out of state, but an increase in the percent from Oregon. So it hasn't affected our overall visitation. Our visitation is down slightly this year compared to last year, but we really see that for a number of reasons, and it's still at a record, or it's still above 50 million visitors per day use. So we're not concerned about visitation, but it is something that we are watching, and these fee changes are different than we've instituted before, so something that we have to continue to monitor.
Cool.
Commissioner Perlow, I think you had your hand up first.
Thank you very much. Hey, Katie, is it me? Did I forget, or did we also affect rule changing on the cancellation policy as far as for using the RV and the yurts and things of that sort? And we kind of put tighter guardrails in this year.
That is, Commissioner Perillo, that's a thing that you're gonna vote on today. That would change the, if you choose to adopt the Division 15 rules, that would change the policy. So it has not gone into effect at this point.
Perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Condor?
Thank you, Chair Hill. This is a question probably more for staff. Katie, you mentioned that we're charging now for the dump stations at a fee of $10, but if you're paying for full hookups, you're not paying that $10 when you dump. How do you decipher, I mean, operational wise, how are you doing that? How many, someone pulls up and they pay and then the next one doesn't pay?
The way that we're, Commissioner Condor, the way that we are assessing the fee is through a QR code. And so it will, much of this will be on an honor system. We have shared with full hookup visitors that they would not need to pay. Typically, they wouldn't need to dump either, but apparently there are some cases where they would choose to use a dump station. And so we provide that information to them when they register. But there won't be staff there on a continual basis, but staff who are there would provide that information from an education perspective first, and then we may move to enforcement in the future. I don't know.
So
The operations folks here want to add anything?
Yeah, I jump in, Katie. For the record, J.R. Collier, Deputy Director of Central Business Services. Yeah, I think Commissioner Condor, to your question, I think because it's QR based, if somebody had a full hookup and for some reason decided to dump there instead of using the sewer hookup at their site, which I think is what most people do, that then they wouldn't have to pay. However, if somebody just had water and electric at their site, that site is cheaper, and because it doesn't have sewer, so that is why they would still be expected to pay that dump station fee, because they have a reduced site rate because they don't have the charge for sewer. So I think that's how we're addressing that. And then, yeah, this is as an initial entry into this space with the QR code as a payment method. We'll see how enforcement goes and what participation rate and compliance is, and then adjust as needed. But we certainly know there'll be a learning curve since it's a new process for everyone, staff and visitors for sure.
We have some kind of new electronic hookup, I mean, electronic device at the dump stations that releases it? Is that how that's working?
So there is such technology, and we have been in discussion with a company that offers a service to that effect, that initially we'll be doing it just from QR code and a non-locked dump station. So that's where Katie mentions kind of an honor system in the way of people will pay because we'll have signage that asks them to. If they choose not to, then they just are not doing what we've asked. We are starting with just that, and if it seems to be a problem or not getting the compliance we need, we could look at that technology, but that also has an additional charge. So we'd be balancing the cost of that technology and both as an install and the monthly or annual surcharges that go with that technology versus is it getting that much more revenue because of increased compliance? So I think that's what we'd be looking at right now, because we don't charge, we don't have exact numbers on dump station utilization. It's pretty anecdotal because we don't track it because it's not something we assess a fee to. So it's purely speculative on what those numbers would be. So that's where we kind of chose to do this QR technology first, to try to get some metrics so we could make decisions on if certain locations warranted the higher investment associated to having a more of a locking dump station mechanism.
Thank you.
Commissioner Azumi?
Yeah, thank you. I have a question, Katie. You mentioned that visitation is down. Is that do you think that that's a result of the fee increases, or are there other reasons that you and your team are thinking about?
Commissioner Zuni, there are a number of factors that affect visitation. We've had some for overnight camping. We've had some parks that have been closed due to construction, and so that affects visitation. Weather affects visitation. We had record visitation in the past, so now being slightly down makes sense. So there are so many factors that affect it. And then our counters are not a perfect technology. We utilize a car counter. So if a car counter isn't functional at a park, then that can affect visitation numbers. So it's a good trend to watch, but it's 1 year being down a little bit isn't something that we're overly concerned about. But it is something that we'll continue to monitor to see if there is an impact from the increases in fees.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised. If anybody else has comments or questions on this, feel free to chime in, but otherwise we can move on.
And that is the end of our presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Katie. We will go ahead and move on to 3B, donation acknowledgement with Dennis. Unless Stephanie, did I miss anything else with the director's update?
No, that's it. I think Deputy Director Collier will be giving this update.
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. Dennis is out today, so I'm going to fill in. So Chair Hill, Director Coons, and members of the commission, again, J.R. Collier, Deputy Director of Central Business Services, bringing item 3B forward this morning, which is kind of a fun feel good item agenda, at least for staff. I think the staff feel it's a bit of a early Christmas present. So a little bit of background: RS 390.155 allows the agency to accept gifts or donations of money or property to be used for specific or general park and recreation purposes. Those donations go over $10,000. It specifies that those need to be presented to the commission for approval and acknowledgement. Commission's role in retaining that authority is to make sure that those gifts or donations are in alignment with the agency's mission and help support that. We were offered a donation of stainless steel hardware from a company called Fast Tap Screw Company. That the value of that donation, wholesale value of that donation, is almost $53,000. The market value is probably closer to 80, which is a pretty significant value. This company, Fast Tap, and their parent company is Fast Pack, has been in operation for 41 years. They're ceasing operations and looking to get out of the business. The principal of that company actually made a smaller donation to the agency about a year ago of some hardware. And then as they actually got to the final end of their business, approached us again for their remaining inventory. This donation is a significant cost savings to the agency. As I mentioned, the wholesale value and the market value, and it's really relevant product. Stainless steel hardware is super expensive, and yet it is super critical for us for maintenance and operations, especially for our coastal park units. They exclusively use stainless steel hardware because nothing else holds up. And if you short circuit to try to, for cost savings and use other material, you end up having to take that apart and replace it usually within a few years. Speaking from personal experience, I know Matt Rupi also worked on the coast and it's not even worth the argument because other stuff just doesn't hold up. So I wanted to mention a little bit of perspective of just how cool of a donation this is. And so most, in case you're not super familiar with construction materials, but these boxes of screws of varying size, like 1.5 inches up to 3 inches, I think is the different size variation, come in boxes of either 250 or 500 to a box. So picture about half the size of a shoe box. That's about the size of one of these screw boxes. This donation is over 1,000 of those. So it's a huge amount of hardware that's, again, immediately going to be put into use. And our park staff figure it's at least 5 to 6 years of material and spread across the unit. So really a awesome thing at a really good time since we were just talking about finances. So it certainly rings the bell of helping us further our mission and function. So again, it aligns well with our financial situation and helps us fulfill our mission. Normally, I think we would have brought this donation request for you ahead of time and asked you before we accepted. However, because of the nature of this donation of this business is closing operations, they gave us a pretty quick turnaround to make a decision. It was about 2 weeks with a deadline of February 6th. And that had to do with them clearing out the warehouse that the material was in. So we consulted with legal counsel and Chair Hill and accepted that donation. But we are asking for the commission to give concurrence and acknowledgement, kind of retroactive approval of the agency accepting that donation. So I would happily take your questions and without questions, we would ask for an action for the commission to acknowledge acceptance of the donation of $52,844.50 in stainless steel screws and hardware.
Well, that's a very generous donation. And I think Commissioner Griggs was asking about how often we get donations. Usually it's nothing of this value in terms of what we can actually use on a regular basis. So we are grateful for this donation. I don't know if anybody has any comments or further questions on this. All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for acknowledgement of acceptance of donation of $52,844.50 in stainless steel screw hardware from Fast Tap Screw Company to OPRD.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Perillo. Can I get a second?
Second.
Was that
My first second.
Commissioner Griggs? Got it. I didn't see it. The camera didn't move fast enough. I got it. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? No. Any abstentions? Seeing none. So approved. Thank you all.
I think this was worth it just to watch Director Collier geek out about hardware.
Screws, right?
That was the other side. It's like, if you guys don't do this, you're gonna see such sad because I think they are tickled pink about this opportunity. It's kind of funny to see how excited them talking about distribution was and how they would be allocating out. So I think it's already been distributed. So that shows how excited they are.
Oh man, now we know what to get you guys for Christmas.
We are simple people. We are a simple people.
All right. Moving on to the legislative update with Katie.
Thank you, Chair Hill, Director Coons, members of the commission. Katie Gauthier here with agenda item 3C, the legislative update. And this one is pretty quick. We are in the middle of the short legislative session. This is the 35-day session. There are 300 bills so far that have been introduced, and we are tracking 56 of them. And the sunny day or the end of the session will be March 8th or sooner. And OPRD really has, just as we do during the long session, we have no position on most, if not all bills. This session, we have no position on bills. We provide background information as needed and explained. So I just thought I would cover a couple of bills that may be of interest to all of you. And I don't know that it should move forward on the screen. Sorry. Move forward over here, but not on this one. Apologize. Let's see. Let's see here. Maybe you can work that out.
Graphic novel.
I don't know why it's stuck there. And there we go. Let me try again. We're just gonna go with this and we'll get this for the next thing. Just to share some of the legislation that has been of interest this session. Recreational liability. In the past, we've talked about recreational immunity, which is if you don't charge for access to public lands or private lands that don't charge and allow the public, there's an immunity. Recreational liability is different. It is more about waivers and whether or not waivers are allowed, and somebody can exempt themselves from some immunity protections by signing a waiver. That there were about 3 different bills that were covering this topic. One of them still remains active. It would allow for waivers for general liability protections. It wouldn't be for any extreme liability, but for some general liability for indoor and outdoor recreation. There have been some conversations about whether it would apply to people under 18 and in what circumstances it would apply. This has been an issue for a lot of the ski industry, and that's where it's been driving the conversation, is more about some of those things. So we'll see what happens with that. Senate Bill 1585 would require that certain grants have a lower match rate for small cities. So our local government grant program is included, and we would have to have a lower match rate for smaller cities. So we would have to go through rulemaking and address the impacts to small cities versus small counties or special districts and see how that works. There's a bill that defines the micro mobility devices and makes some changes to e-bikes, allowing e-bikes for people under 16. So we, in the past, have done rules around e-bike usage and have some rules around it being for people over 16. So we would have to go through rulemaking, and the powered micro mobility devices include things like one wheels and electric skateboards, electric scooters, and we have not allowed those on many trails. So that would provide an opportunity for us to relook at that. There is a bill that looks at public meetings law, looking at the changes around serial communication, which has been an issue for a lot of cities and city councils. So this one is a kind of a holistic look at public meeting law, and we'll have to address that. There's some training components that are included, so we will look at that to see what passes out. And then HB 5204 is a budget bill that includes authorization for the Main Street Grant Program. During the last long session, when our budget passed, the authorization to expend the grant funding, we had lottery bonds that were sold, but we didn't have authorization to expend those. So we need to have that included, and that is in that bill. which we anticipate will move forward. And that is it, unless there are any questions.
Don't see any. Wonderful. Thanks for tracking those and yeah, keep us updated. Hope the next few weeks go okay. All right, unless there's anything else under director's update, we can go ahead and move on to Sarah, item 4 on the agenda. Okay, let's do so.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
We can, thank you.
Okay, fabulous. Chair Hill, Interim Director Coons, members of the commission, I'm Sarah Head, the Chief Financial Officer for OPRD. Thank you for having me here today. I'm going to share a few slides with you, not too many, and I hope that you will find it useful. Let's see if mine work a little kinder than Katie's were to her. It is not sharing the screen. I would prefer. Let's see if we can do this a different. Well, you're not seeing full screen. Okay, I'm going to stop for a minute. Try this a different way. Okay, let's see if it is more willing. There we go. Okay, better for you, not ideal for me. We'll get there. So last time I talked to you, we talked a little bit about what was going on with our budget. And as you're aware, we built a budget for this biennium that was a temporary type budget. Are you still seeing a full slide on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And so what we're trying to do for this budget, for this biennium, is with all the work you're doing, we are trying to make some changes that will help us when we build our 27-29. So Katie talked to you about these fees, and I just want to be sure that you're clear that you've done a lot of great work, and we'll talk about how it's impacting us and changing. The timeline that I'm going to show you is a little different than Katie's. This is put together in the timeline that it's implemented on the customer side. So we're going to get and talk about what we're doing right now. So it might be a little bit different than the way Katie's slides were laid out. We worked on them together. It's the same information. So in January 2025, the parking fee was changed from 5 to 10. And then in July, Katie talked about the overnights. All of them had a surcharge. Before that, it had just been RV sites for out of state. And then in October 2025, we removed the waivers at some of those parks. And that was also our first go at QR code technology. We did a lot of work on that with Treasury and integrating it into our systems and trying to make it smoother for the customers and testing out the technology and connectivity at different places. And then January of this year, that's when the annual and the 24-month permits had their big changes. So just a lot of stuff going on. And our fees hadn't been changed in so long that along the way, because we did the changes over the calendar year, there were some pricing anomalies and different things to work through. That brings us to the upcoming changes. So as Katie spoke about, we're going to start charging for dump stations in March. And our goal there is really to help protect our systems in our parks and be sure that those who are just passing by and, as you mentioned, camping elsewhere and that kind of thing, that we are collecting a fee for the services that they are using from us. and we're going to be charging at additional parks, removing that waiver. And again, those are QR codes, so there's very low cost for us to implement that. I have a tendency to look at everything net, not just what revenue will it raise, but how much will it cost us to get that started and off the ground and the maintenance of it. And then the thing that we're going to see in May is our overnight camping fee rates going up. You approved it quite a while ago, and the reservations started getting booked 6 months ago, but we'll just be hitting the time period where our customers are paying those additional fees, and we haven't seen a full summer of booking at the new fees. We are facing some forecasting challenges. As you mentioned, we're wondering, is customer behavior going to change? Will we see a bigger shift in annual versus daily than we've seen in the past? And we had a large 24-month surcharge. In December, we sold an astronomical amount of those permits because they were at a very low price. And so those are some of the things that we're watching, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But so far, because we aren't far enough out in booking, we're right now taking reservations 6 months out, so August of 24. So we don't know, August 24th. We don't know exactly what a whole summer with like Labor Day weekend and everything looks like yet. So park user fees are improving. I want to look at this chart and really talk about this a little, and it's similar to something you saw last time, and we'll probably bring it to you every meeting for quite a while, because this is the area of focus as we go forward. Traditionally, parks has been lottery based, and I'll show you what that graph looks like and why that needs to change for us. So park user fees, the big boxes down at the bottom, those are overnight. That is where a significant portion of our revenue comes from. And then we've spent a lot of time talking about the different fees and how they're changing. And you can see 2026, this is July to December of this fiscal year. So we're comparing 6 months to the prior 6 months in the prior years, the same 6-month period in the prior year. Seasonality is a really big deal for us, so we always have to compare the same part of the calendar. So when we take those 6 months of 2026, 2025, and 2024, you can see them here. And it's an extra 5.6 million for us, 15.3%. And that is a really significant amount for us, very significant. What I think is important to note, though, is it's not a trend, because when you look at 25, 26, you say, oh, it went up a lot. We will still have approximately the same number of parks and the same number of overnight spaces and the same number of parking spaces for 27 as we do for 26. So it won't be a continual trend. It's sort of a new plateau. And that's something we probably need to talk about a little bit, is will there be additional fee increases? But for now, let's look at how is this revenue doing for us? Are the fee changes enough? Because that's really what you want to know, right? This is just a bar chart, real high level, because it's a concept that we're looking at and studying all the time and different parts of it. What we're doing here is we're looking at non-dedicated revenue versus non-dedicated expense. And this conversation started in commission over a year ago, where Courtney and LB came to you and they brought a presentation about the future of our budget, and that expenses were exceeding revenues and what were some things we needed to do. That's why you've been doing all this work. If you look at 21, 23, the green, the revenue, did exceed the expenses for actuals, okay? Then in 23, 25, the actuals, the revenue was lower than the expenses. And that is the trajectory that we were on, and it would have continued to get worse, okay? Then for 25, 27, this is our budget, obviously not our actuals yet. So the orange is much higher. The expenses were built much higher. That is not something that we could sustain. That's not even something that we want to let happen. When we talk about that 5 million that we're holding back for construction, and we're slowing on hiring and that kind of thing, what we're trying to do is make it so that that orange bar for 25, 27, when the dust settles, is the same as the green. Like that's what I'm trying to do, right? Land the plane perfectly at break even would be great for this biennium. I'm not even trying to push for more at this point. What we're seeing when we look at 27, 29, and we've done some preliminary estimates and looking at how the budget would come together, the expense would be more than the revenue. And we are not in a position with our analysts like at LFO and CFO to be allowed to build a budget like that. They have said, this is your biennium, let's make this work. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to look at it and say, okay, this is where we are now with expense lower than revenue, or revenue lower than expense. We want to, our ideal budget would be that revenue was higher so that we could increase our fund balances again, have revenue set aside for I hate to even utter it out loud, but significant park closures or something like that. Or also just if we wanted to do a large budget package that allowed us to do a significant construction project or address a significant deferred maintenance project, we would have to have that money set aside and be able to show that that was an option for us. So that would be our ideal budget. That's not what I'm trying to get to for 27, 29 when we bring you a budget, but I just wanted you to know that that's what we're negotiating with right now and looking at. It's February, and so we're talking about packages and options and looking at things in our agency. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. In March, the state budget instructions will come out and all of the assumptions, and the project will start underway to actually build the budget. In April, we'll talk to you more about the budget, and then in June, you will approve the agency request budget that would go to the governor's office. So the season is starting, even though we're very early in understanding how this 25-27 budget will evolve. Lottery. I want to talk to you about lottery because when I came, oh, and for those of you who are new, I'm new with you. It will be a year in May for me. So I'm new with you. Lottery was the priority of our organization. It supported us. The revenue continued to grow. We have dedicated revenue from lottery, and it sustained this agency very well for years. So when I came, all of the financial reporting was centered on lottery. And you'll notice that's something that we're shifting away from because honestly, lottery is not growing at a pace that will keep up with our expenses. We have to work on the user fees, what we call other funds. That's where that money sits. We have to work on that and figure out how we can be sustainable to support parks in the future. When we look at this lottery forecast chart, you may have heard that there was a change. So a larger portion of the lottery money goes to our grant program now, local government grant program. And one thing that I wanted to make sure that this group understands is that was significant. Depending on how you look at it or measure it, we're talking 20 to 30 million. So this little tiny dark green section down here in 1921, that was how much used to go to LGGP. Now the dark green section all along here is how much goes to that grant program. And it's a wonderful grant program. But what that does is it pulls more money away from maintaining and operating our parks. So we as an agency are trying to figure out how to make up that revenue also at a time when costs are escalating. So we have the perfect storm going on. The other thing that's important to note is how the column as a whole for lottery revenue is very flat. It goes up for 29-31, but it doesn't go up beyond that. It's not expected to trend back to something like what we see between 21 and 23 with the big spike in the column size. So we need to, as an agency, figure out how to accommodate for that. So you're going to hear me speaking less and less about lottery and more about park user fees and other funds, because that is how we need to figure out to sustain our organization. We can't control lottery. So the other funds challenge, and this is what I want to talk to you about it's not a trend. We have reset the plateau. Because we have a fixed number of parks, we have a fixed number of sites, everything about our organization is operating fairly at max capacity. Sometimes we had some closures, of course, and we had some other issues, but essentially we are, it's way back in my memory, I believe what we call a substitutable product. So depending on what's going on in the economy and as our price varies slightly, different people may come to our parks, but we will still be operating at fairly similar capacities. And that's what we've been looking at and studying. So by raising our fees, what we've done is the teal down here is park user fees. We raise that line for the revenue that it contributes to us. But unless we continue to do $1 a year or something like that, that doesn't keep trending up. We've just reset the plateau. So we need to be pretty careful about waiting a decade or two to increase those again. And there was a very good presentation before I came. Courtney and LB did a presentation about the difference between waiting several years and raising a fee, $5 versus $1 a year. So when you think about park user fees, be sure to think in terms of plateau. If we don't increase annually, it's just an ongoing plateau while our expenses continue to rise. And as I said, I do not think that lottery will make up for it. I would love to be proved wrong on that. Absolutely. So investigating variables. This is a challenging time to be forecasting for parks. And our budget team has been so patient with me because I expect them to do everything and figure out how it's going to look. As we look at variables, parks has been very flat. It had the plateau, the product mix daily versus annual permits and 24-month. It was very fixed. Now we are seeing things maybe because of pricing anomalies, maybe because of shifting that we don't quite understand. So we're struggling a little bit to forecast. They're good things. They're just not things we expected. Year over year, daily permits in January are up 22%. Okay. I would not have expected that based on how many 24-month permits we sold in December, but they're up. And so when we look at some of these things, it's very interesting. Also, annual permits for January up 18% year over year. So perhaps because we're charging at more parks, we're selling more of these. We don't know if this is a trend or a catch up and adjustment to our pricing, but we're studying it. We're really looking at trying to figure out, is this a trend? Is this the new plateau? How will our users respond to this? Looking forward, I want to be very clear. Our expenses are still outpacing our revenues. We've done a great job increasing park user fees, but it isn't the full fix. And it's a little complex because in 25-27, we've implemented these fees throughout the biennium. So we don't have 24 months that will reflect the revenue changes. But we are for 27-29, estimating and forecasting those 24 months. So 25-27 will have significantly less revenue than 27-29 because it doesn't have the full 24 months of, say, the overnight changes and things like that. But then 27-29 will set that new plateau for a biennium, and we'll have to be monitoring that to see if that will be sustainable. At this point, I don't think it will. We are looking at a lot of things on the expense side. Right now, staff throughout the entire organization are working on costing various scenarios, and then the budget team looks at that and says, okay, how would that change? And we're really, really looking for recurring costs, not just one time. One time is great for this biennium, but we need we need to change our expense line and our trajectory. We're doing park and program assessments throughout the organization, looking at possibly underutilized assets, possibly areas where a program has outlived its usefulness and maybe it's not something that our customers are getting a good return on for the amount of resources that we're putting into it. And then we're starting to build that agency request budget and looking at it. And we're rolling all of that together and working with the exec team and park managers, all levels throughout, trying to come up with ideas for minimize expenses and not impacting our customers, and really stopping and asking ourselves, would our visitors notice if we changed this? Or maybe our visitors would like it. QR codes have been a real hit. That's been quite a surprise. Another thing that occurred for us, it's not quite final, it's working its way through session, is lottery revenue did not hit the level that was in our budget. So we are getting our budget rebalanced through this session to the current lottery forecast. And that was ballpark 5 million, I believe 3 point something operationally, and the rest was LGGP. But that's another thing that can happen to us, is we have to be prepared for lottery to be declining slightly. And then park user fees, they have increased, but they aren't matching expenses. So we're looking at all of that stuff and the big picture and trying to stay ahead of issues and be transparent with you and share everything that we can internally so that our leaders can say, okay, let's pivot on this. And that's what we're doing. I think at this point, our forecasts, I don't have a very, very high level of certainty in them because there are so many changes, but we have a team of people that sit around and argue and debate, and I think that's the best that we can do. Questions?
Does anybody have questions on the commission for Sarah? Sarah, that was a wonderful presentation, by the way.
Thank you so
I
much.
really appreciate I appreciate you kind of bringing it down to at least my level for in these PowerPoints. Any questions? Okay, I don't see any. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Perullo.
Hi, Betty. Thank you for the nice update. I'm Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm a little time difference here. Could you explain, could you explain so that the new commissioners understand the legislative change in the lottery share? So why you're just not using money for other things?
Okay, yes. I'm going to try and get back to that slide quickly if I can. So the legislative change was that, no, we're not going to do that. Okay. The Measure 76 had a trigger in it that when it hit a certain dollar limit, it would essentially a switch turned and more revenue went to the local government grant program. The thing about the way that was written, and this is just my opinion, and there are lots of different opinions about it, it didn't have an escalation clause in it. It didn't have anything about inflation. It just said when it hits X percent of this original number, it will occur. There was no adjusting factor, no inflation, no 1% per year growth. And so that number has been triggered. And with what we're seeing in lottery forecasts, even though they're not growing, we don't see that we would be back down below that threshold anytime soon. So if it's left as is, Parks has no control over that. And those who were here when it occurred may have additional comments too.
I don't see additional comments, but okay. Awesome. All right, anything else for the budget questions as we move forward on the schedule that Sarah shared? All right, and I do want to flag, we are working on potentially putting together a working group with legislators and myself to start thinking about, how we can address our funding issues going forward. That won't happen until after this session. But we are having those conversations about how to collectively think through the future of funding for OPRD. So we'll keep you updated, everybody on the commission updated on that as that moves forward. All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. Very
Thank
helpful.
you.
Moving on to agenda item 5A, Harris Beach with Jeff.
Good morning, Chair Hill, Interim Director Coons, members of the commission. I'm Jeff Walker, property agent for OPRD Real Estate Services. I'm presenting agenda item 5A, encroachment resolution with our property line adjustment. Down at Harris Beach State Park, which consists of approximately 172 acres of land just north of Brookings, Oregon. The park offers both day utilities, activities and overnight camping. A portion of the park on the east side of the Highway 101 consists of a developed area with parking lot and visitor center. Then the west side of the Highway 101, the recreation area consists of a campground, Harris Butte, and a hiking trail, wooded valley area along the lower reach of Harris Creek and headlands and access to the beach. Encroachment on OPRD land was identified during recent real estate activities involving a private landowner adjacent to the south boundary of the park. Private landowner hired a preliminary survey that determined that a small portion of the private landowner site improvements are encroaching on approximately about 1,924 square feet of OPRD land. OPRD contracted and received a professional opinion of value, following which OPRD and the landowner agreed on the price of $10,000 pending approvals for the landowner to acquire the 1,924 square feet of OPRD land to resolve this encroachment. This transaction would not affect any kind of recreational use of the surrounding OPRD property. It would eliminate any kind of possible future management issues, and it would continue to support the operation of the state park land. OPRD real estate staff asked the commission to approve this transaction. The request is to approve this disposition of the identified 1,924 square feet of parkland via the property line adjustment to the adjacent private landowner and authorize the OPRD director to sign all necessary instruments affecting this transaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions or discussion for Jeff? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on this one for approval of disposition of the identified 1,924 square feet of parkland via property line adjustment to the adjacent private landowner and authorize the OPRD director to sign all necessary instruments effectuating the transaction.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Condor. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Izumi. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, no. Any abstentions? All right, so approved. Thank you, Jeff, for all your work on this.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, moving on. We are on 5B, Smith Rock with Tabitha. This is an informational item.
Give me just a second to get my map shared. Do you see that there?
No.
There we go. We see it.
Okay, great. Good morning, Chair Hill, Director Coons, Commissioners. My name is Tabitha Henriksen. I'm a property agent with the Real Estate Services Group for OPRD. Today I'm bringing you an informational item about some continued real estate work at Smith Rock. This was originally intended to support a general obligation bond project that was planned for the park that's since been scaled back. So rather than the new visitor center and improved parking there, There is going to continue to be some efforts to maybe put in a new restroom on the site and expand some parking in the area of some current overflow parking. During the land use application project, part of the process, Deschutes County flagged several items related to right-of-way for Northeast Crooked River Drive, which you can see is marked and kind of goes along that edge of the park there. There is a section of that road that has head-in parking that serves OPRD's visitors, and then there is also a leg to the far north that you can see really only serves OPRD's access because our nearest neighbors are just south of kind of where that overflow parking area is. So Deschutes County has asked for us to consider and take a look at some agreements and potentially some actions related to the right-of-way. We are assessing several different possible courses of action and how we can best partner with Deschutes County Road Department and others in the community to address issues that include the right-of-way placement, width, use, parking, pedestrian, and neighborhood safety. We are researching historical data around the establishment and the development of the right-of-way of the road and the impacts to potential development and previous property obligations for the Parks Department. Are there any questions?
I don't see any from commissioners.
Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tabitha. All right, we're cruising right through. We are on agenda item 6, community engagement. 6A, natural area registration. I want to say this correctly. Awana, Flat State Natural Area.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, great. I know.
Hi. Well, and good morning, Commissioner Hill, Director Coons, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Noel Batchelor. I'm the Central Natural Resource Specialist and the coordinator of the Natural Areas Program and Natural Areas Registry. And I'm here to talk to you today about a petition that we received from the Nature Conservancy to register their property, Awana Flats, in Klamath Falls and include it on the Natural Areas Register. I will start with see if I can get this to move to the next slide somehow. There we go. The yellow boundary shown on the map to the right is the property boundary. This is a small property. It's 7 acres in size. It's kind of in the middle of a relatively developed area near Lake Awana in Klamath Falls. It's surrounded by retail and industrial development. But it's also a very significant habitat and includes a rare species that is perhaps the rarest plant species in Oregon. This is a alkali flat, and you can see on the aerial photo that there is this white soil type. That's largely salt and alkali from the way that the water stayed on this land when it was an ancient lake that dried up and left salt behind. So that causes a lot of endemism. It causes plants to be specially adapted in that type of environment. And this site has been recognized as one of the very few sites that contains Applegate's milk vetch in the world. And I'll show you on this next map here that the entirety of the population of Applegate's milk vetch is all in Klamath Falls within a few miles of the city. So this particular parcel outlined in yellow is a very significant site despite its urban feel. The map on the left shows the property boundary in its context with Klamath Falls. And I will move to the next slide here. The reason that we are involved in this is, of course, because we are the administrators of the Oregon State Natural Areas Plan. State Parks has had this role since 2012 when the program was moved to OPRD from the Department of State Lands. The program goes back until, I think 1977 was its first incarnation, and sites have been added to the register continuously since foundation of the program. The State Natural Areas Plan includes a register, which is made up of what used to be called cells or ecosystem elements or potential habitat types, which are part of a museum or a Noah's Ark, if you will, of habitat types and species occurrences throughout the state. And the goal of the State Natural Areas Plan and Register is to recognize a museum piece, a location where a habitat or a species is represented, and add that to a base of land that's available for public interpretation, research, etc. In the case of our registrations of property, we have to determine that they are eligible by referring to the ecosystem elements that are there, whether we have a significant amount of redundancy in that type, whether it's already secure. And in this case, the property is fairly unique. It has been actually recognized for many years without formal recognition. So Iwana Flats has been included in the State Natural Areas Plan probably for 35 years without any formal recognition. So this would be to formalize that. One of the reasons why a private entity like the Nature Conservancy would want to register a property is to receive tax benefits that are included in the Oregon Department of Revenue's statutes, which provide for deferral of back taxes that become due upon changing from a tax sheltered type like exclusive farm use or forestry to something that has a higher tax rate like open space. So the Oregon State Parks Natural Areas staff and the Oregon Biodiversity Information Center have a joint responsibility for assessing whether properties that are petitioned for inclusion on the register are eligible or not, and both entities agree that this site is eligible. Although it's small and in kind of an industrial retail type of landscape, that doesn't disqualify it from registration. Properties do not necessarily have to be huge or scenic or have overt recreational amenities or anything like that. In this case, because it conserves a population of perhaps the rarest plant species in the state, that's enough to say that it's fully eligible from the strict guidelines of the statute. This property is also part of the larger Iwana Flats wetland complex, which has been recognized by the Wetlands Conservancy and the Oregon Explorer Mitigation Planning Map as one of the most biologically significant wetlands in the state. And like I said before, we have been passively recognizing this property as a de facto representative of this ecosystem element in the State Natural Areas Plan for 30, maybe 40 years. So with that, staff recommend registering this property, formalizing the situation of having this fill an ecosystem element. And with that, questions, discussion?
Wonderful. Any questions for Noel on this? Looks like a beautiful flower. Really
Yeah, it is. And we actually have it on the OCNE Woods line as well, which is very close to this particular site.
Wow. All right, I have this as an informational item, so I assume we're not voting on this today.
It should be an action item.
Am I missing something here? Let's see.
It's action on before, but on the agenda, it's informational.
Do we need to vote on this today, Stephanie? Do you know?
Is it okay, Steve, if we switch from the commissioner to the?
Yeah, I believe because the agenda item itself reflects that it's an action item and it's just an error on the agenda, we could proceed with it today if we chose to.
We can proceed.
Okay, great. Then I will entertain a motion on this to register. Noel, maybe you can help me with the wording on this. Is it to register the property
Yes, to
Awana
register,
Flats.
that's correct, to register
Okay.
the Awana Flats property, to include it on the State Natural Areas Register.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll entertain a motion from somebody on the commission.
So
I'll make that. Thanks, I'll second.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. All those in favor of registering Awana Flats signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. And any abstentions? Seeing none, it's approved. Thank you, Noel, for your work on this and for this background information.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, learn something new every day. So this is one new thing. All right, moving on to 6B, County Opportunity Grant Program with Michelle. And these are the 2026 grant recommendations.
I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you're seeing my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Good. Okay, good morning, Chair Hill, Director Coons, members of the commission. I'm Michelle Scalise, the manager of the Grants and Community Programs section at OPRD. I will be presenting the next two briefs in your packet, starting with 6B, County Opportunity Grant Program 2026 Grant Recommendations. The County Opportunity Parks Assistance Advisory Committee met virtually on December 8th, 2025 to evaluate 9 county opportunity grant requests totaling $2,171,547 with $2,246,384 available to award. So that's a good situation to be in. Based on the evaluation criteria, the committee has recommended funding all 9 grant requests for a total of $2,171,547. The remaining available grant balance of $74,837 will be carried forward to the 2027 grant cycle. If approved, the recommended projects go through a final review and must meet all County Opportunity Grant Program and agency requirements prior to receiving a grant agreement. And I just wanted you to be aware of that because we have some new commissioners, and in some instances, the grant awards you approve today may ultimately not end up in an official award, but that's kind of a rare circumstance. So this is the distribution of the 9 requests, 9 county opportunity grant requests throughout the state. And the action requested today, so we're seeking commission approval to award the county opportunity grant request as detailed in the raking sheet. That's attachment A in your packet, in the amount of $2,171,547.
Wonderful. All right. Any questions for Michelle about the awards or anything about this program? Oh, Commissioner Perullo, go ahead.
Hi, Michelle. Just a quick question. What's the match requirement for the county grants?
Commissioner Perullo, it's 20%.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you for all your work on this and for the committee's work. I'll entertain a motion to approve the county opportunity grant funds as detailed on the spreadsheet that was presented to us in the amount of $2,171,547.
I'll move to approve the County Opportunity Grant Fund awards as detailed on the attached spreadsheet in the amount of $2,171. No, $2,171,000. Wait.
You got it.
$2,171,500. It's almost lunch.
I think we need to get Betty some coffee.
I need some food.
Thank you, Betty, for your motion. Can I get a second? I'll
Second.
entertain a second.
Are we
Okay, thank
seconding
you
Betty
very
getting food or, oh, no.
Maybe after item 6, we can take a short break. All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, no. Any abstentions on this? Seeing none, so approved. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We are keeping with Michelle. We're going to keep her on here for the all-terrain vehicle grant recommendations.
Good morning again, Chair Hill, Director Coons, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Michelle Scalise, Grants and Community Programs Manager, and I'm now presenting agenda item 6C for the all-terrain vehicle grant recommendations. So some background on this. The ATV grant subcommittee met virtually January 12th and 13th to evaluate and rank 16 applications for a variety of project categories, including law enforcement, safety education, emergency medical services, maintenance and development, totaling $1,698,244,000, and only $1,402,458 was currently available to award. Based on the evaluation criteria, the committee has recommended funding all 16 grant requests for a total of $1,698,244. But the funds we have available currently would only reach 15 projects. However, there is a very good chance that additional funds will come available through deobligation of existing grants. And I've already seen some of that kind of coming through. So when projects complete and under budget, or they're not able to spend all of their allocated funds, that those funds go back into the grant program. So I do feel pretty strongly that we should be able to reach project 16 soon. Again, just noting that recommended projects must meet all agency requirements to move forward to the grant agreement and official award stage. And this is distribution of all 16 grant requests throughout the state. Blue represents law enforcement and emergency medical services. The green on the map depicts operations and maintenance, and then one development project, which is that Douglas County project, which is the rank number 16 at this moment. And then orange is safety education. So this one's a little easier because I did leave the actual dollar amount, which seems like a better idea. I will take that as a note. But the action requested here is approval to fund the ATV grant subcommittee's recommended project subject to available funding as detailed in the ranking spreadsheet, which is attachment A in your packet.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Any questions or comments? Again, I appreciate all the committee's work on getting these done, and it's so great that we can potentially fund every single request. That map is beautiful, covering so many different counties and parts of the state as well. So
yeah, staff does a great job on those. Thank you so much, Chair Hill.
I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve funding the ATV grant subcommittee's recommended projects, subject to available funding as detailed in the ranking spreadsheet provided to all of us. Who wants to make the motion?
So moved.
Awesome. That was Commissioner Griggs. Awesome.
Yepper.
All right, I'll take a second.
I'll second that.
Oh, thank you. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, no. Hearing none. No abstentions. Any? Okay. So approved. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Chair Hill and Commissioners.
Okay, one more action item under community engagement, 6D. 2026 Oregon Recreational Trails Plan, and this is with Jessica. Morning.
Let me get my screen share going here real quick.
All right. Well, Chair Hill, Director Coons, members of the commission, for the record, I'm Jessica Horning and was the statewide trails planner and project manager for the 2026 Oregon Recreational Trails Plan that we're presenting to you for approval today. And I'm joined by Jody.
Hi there, Chair Hill, Director Coons, members of the commission. For the record, I'm Jody Belfi, Grant Program Coordinator at OPRD.
Great. And the work we're presenting for you today involved really a great team with staff from across the agency, both our grant and community programs, planning, capital improvements, government relations, field operations, as well as external reviewers from multiple land manager and nonprofit partners. So we're very excited to be sharing it with you today. Jody joined you all at the November meeting and gave a real deep dive into what was in the public review draft of the plan, and also acknowledging that I'm what's between you and a needed snack break. I'll keep this as a very quick refresher of what's in the plan and what's changed since our public review. So the Trails Plan is our 10-year statewide policy plan that identifies our needs for non-motorized ATV, snowmobile, and non-motorized water trails across the state. It makes action recommendations for all land managers and partners working on recreational trails in Oregon. So OPRD is tasked in statute with leading this work, but it benefits all of our partners across the state. One big thing that it does do for our agency is it updates the recreational trails program and ATV grant criteria that we hope to begin using to score applications starting with our fall 2026 solicitation for both those programs. This is just a quick overview of the structure of the plan and a screenshot of our new cover for the final designed version. The plan includes a lot of data summarizing 2 years of outreach with land managers and trail users, a list of statewide and user-specific priority needs to support recreational trails throughout the state. And for each of those need areas, a list of recommended actions that OPRD and other trail partners can use to support things like grant applications, local trail planning, and decision-making. The last couple chapters also include, as I mentioned, those updated recommended RTP and ATV grant criteria. 2 new elements of the plan that we're pretty excited about for this 2026 edition include case studies throughout the plan that are highlighting best practices at work here in Oregon, as well as a companion website that we've created with links and tools and resources that can help tackle some of the challenges that are highlighted in the plan and implement the recommended actions. So as I mentioned, in November, when we last came to you about the plan, we were in the middle of our public review period that we hosted from October 30th to November 30th. As part of that process, we hosted a virtual open house with Q&A on October 31st and made a recording of that open house available online for anybody who wanted to learn more about the plan. We also hosted an in-person workshop at the Oregon Outdoor Recreation Summit in Pendleton on November 7th with a pretty full house with 8 breakout groups to provide feedback on the plan. And we received 16 additional public comments through email and through a public comment form we had available on the project website. Overall, we didn't receive any requested changes or comments any requested changes to the RTP or ATV grant criteria. And I think that really reflects the great work that Jody and Ian Caldwell did with the advisory committees for both of those programs over the last 2 years, really involving them in the development and refinement of that key part of the plan. We did receive some comments, multiple comments, just sharing appreciation for Oregon's trail network and for the plan, including a very nice shout out to Park Manager Aaron Rains and the leadership he has shown with the Banks Vernonia Trail. The other comments that we received really were in line with the key themes that we heard over the last 2 years of public outreach, and those priority areas that are identified in the plan. So maintenance and stewardship, funding, addressing user conflicts and shared use trails, improving accessibility for people with disabilities, and ensuring we're balancing recreation with the need to conserve natural resources. So staff made some edits and clarifications in response to those comments. Some of them were requesting larger scale work that is just outside the scope of what we can do in a statewide policy plan, like conducting environmental analyses or other things that really kind of need to be that case-by-case land manager sort of function. So that is the general review of what we've been up to since we last saw you in November. Jody and I are happy to address any questions or comments on the plan. We've got some kind of back pocket slides if anybody wants to dive into the criteria or those needs that are identified in the plan. Otherwise, our request is for approval of the recreational trails plan, which would direct staff to update the grant criteria for RTP and ATV programs to be consistent with the plan for those 2026 solicitations, directs us to maintain that new website, and just, shows our agency leadership and support for joint implementation of the plan. And Commissioner Spence. Or sorry, I'm not sure who calls on people.
Well, it's fine. I think we're pretty low key, right, Chair Hill?
You're totally fine. Yep.
All right. We'll get the chair's blessing first. How did great work. I love these things. I've been on both ends, with the SCORP being a participant in the planning phase, and it's been great, good experience. So I'm happy to see all the public comments and all the interaction. The micromobility legislative discussion, has it weighed into some of these discussions? I know some of the concerns were the multi-use paths. Wondering if you could expand on any of that sort of comments that you heard.
Yeah, so this is the first plan that we've done that really tackles the micromobility, electric mobility issue. We do have one section in the plan that kind of dives into that, sharing information on what we learned through outreach and through the SCORP on how many people are saying they're using these types of devices on trails in Oregon. And then we do provide some different case studies. What we heard from folks is definitely a split. We heard from folks on both sides of the issue of wanting to close more trails to e-bikes and electric devices, and a lot of folks who are really proponents for allowing those on more trails as a way for people to be able to enjoy the forms of outdoor recreation that they enjoy longer through disability, through aging, things like that. So we have some case studies throughout the plan, sharing how different land managers have kind of tackled that issue of evaluating what they're allowing on different trails, and some different resources in that technical resources website that I mentioned.
Yeah, it's a big challenge, so I appreciate that.
Any other questions for Jessica or Jody? I don't see any. Well, thank you guys for all your work on this and all the staff time that went into this, and really listening to comments and updating as needed. It's I can't imagine. It's a lot of work, and I know we only get to see you for a short blip of time, but we are grateful for all the things you guys did going into this plan. So all right, with that, I would entertain a motion on this. We need to approve it. So the motion is for OPRD to Commission to approve the 2026 Oregon Recreational Trails Plan.
Chair Hill, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the 2026 Trails Plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Perullo. Can I get a second?
Second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Condor. All right, without further questions or comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition on this one? Any abstentions? Seeing none, it's approved. Thank you all.
And I just have a question, if I could, really quick for not of this plan or anything, but just about who replaced Mark. So the grants, there was a long-standing employee, Mark Cowan, did amazing work in the grants division. So while I have Jessica and Jody and maybe Michelle's around, who's doing that, or what's the shuffle?
Great, I can answer that. Thanks, Commissioner Spence. Oh, and Michelle just popped back on too.
Yeah, awesome.
Michelle, did you want to take this one? Otherwise, I can.
Sure. Sure. I was thinking, oh, good. I'm glad I stayed and I'm watching, and you guys did a great job.
Sorry, but you'll
no, it's okay. Chair Hill, Commissioner Spence. Yes, we a month ago we did. We're able to. Sorry, I don't have my camera on. We were able to hire and joining us as the new local government grant program coordinator is Jenny Dimshow, and she has extensive background in local communities. She has joined us. Her last place of employment was the city of St. Helens, and she is involved in a lot of our grants and applied and actually worked with some of our heritage programs. So she is feverishly working to get our grant cycle that had to be delayed due to the retirement and recruitment and all of that getting kicked off here actually next week. So she has hit the ground running. But yeah, we're very glad to have Jenny Dimshow join us as the role of local government grant program coordinator.
Yeah, thank you. This is particularly important because of that slide that Sarah had showed us, where the lottery, like the kicker, the lottery dollars went into that local grant, program, therefore increasing the demand of staff exponentially as well. So good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spence.
Wonderful. Thanks for that question. All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and take a break. I think everybody needs to get some food and whatnot. So we will reconvene at 11:30, if that gives everybody enough time to run and do what they need to do.
Okay, will there be this is not a lunch break. This is just a quick break. Are we doing lunch or are we doing lunch afterwards?
Well,
just
it's up
trying to
you
plan
guys.
ahead.
Yeah. I don't know how much longer these items will take. We only have we
Right.
have 2 rulemakings. So I think if we can power through,
Yeah.
we won't be taking a lunch break. So if
Cool.
go ahead and fuel up now if you can. Obviously, if you need to step away, go for it during the meeting. But yeah,
Thanks.
this will be in replacement of that. Okay, awesome. See you guys soon. All right, let's start to all come back and reconvene. All right, folks in the room, are we ready to move on to our next? I don't think they can hear me.
I can hear you. If that matters.
Well, thank
Hey,
you.
meeting
Maybe
room,
we'll just
meeting
move
room.
forward without the meeting room.
Hey, you guys.
I'll text Lisa or Stephanie.
Okay. Good little donut break. Yeah, I didn't see those earlier. I was eating the whole damn thing.
Oh, we missed donuts? Darn it.
Yeah, sorry. It was really good. I only ate half of one.
Oh, well,
There's another half sitting.
you'll have to grab it before you head out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just mail it to us. All right. Well, hopefully everybody was able to get a little snack and do what they needed to do. If we need to take another break, we totally can. Just flag. But if you need to leave to use the restroom, grab food, whatever, just let us know. We're going to move on to agenda item 7, the heritage section, and this is just a update with Matt.
Good morning, Chair Hill, Director Coons, members of the commission. For the record, Matt Rippey with the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. Here with agenda item 7A, which is a heritage section brief. There's a few on here. I'm not going to read them in depth because I know that you do have them in front of you too, but I wanted to highlight a couple of things. The first is that the Oregon Main Street recognizes 4 new designated Main Street organizations. Those include Downtown Medford Association, the North Bend Main Street, Port Orford Main Street, and Reedsport Main Street. This designation recognizes these communities' strong commitment to building sustainable organizations that improve historic downtowns through partnerships and community engagement. And so congratulations to those 4 organizations. The next one I wanted to highlight for you is that the Oregon State Historic Preservation Office is participating in a statewide housing work group. In 2024, Governor Kotek set an ambitious goal of increasing housing production by 36,000 units annually over the next decade. Through that passage of Senate Bill 1537, the State Housing Interagency Partnership, or SHIP, was created. And that's really to guide agency collaboration and just make sure that agencies are on the same page, looking for some solutions and ensuring accountability. Our Deputy SHPO Ian Johnson is a part of that steering committee. And then Robert Oakland, who's the SHPO compliance specialist, is on the policy committee as well. So we've got a pretty active participation in that group. Just trying to highlight ways that some of the SHPO processes could work with the governor's directive to increase the housing capacity across the state. So there'll be probably a lot more to come on that project. It's a pretty big deal and affecting most permitting or regulatory agencies across the state. Next, I wanted to highlight new appointments to the Oregon Heritage Commissions and Committees. Ann Niblett of Coos Bay was appointed to the State Advisory Committee on Historic Preservation. This is the group that reviews and recommends nominations for the National Register of Historic Places. Larry Landis and Amy Tracewell were appointed to the Oregon Heritage Commission. This is the group that coordinates heritage efforts across the entire state. And then lastly, Lindsay Reba-Smith of Portland was appointed to the Oregon Commission of Historic Cemeteries. So congratulations to those folks too. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate, similar to what you all do, the public service that they provide for these committees and commissions. It's very cool. Next, I wanted to mention the Heritage Hub. Some of you may have be familiar with Heritage Hub. We've been working for about 10 years, a little over 10 years, to try and get a new software platform in place that would automate and kind of modernize the way that our State Historic Preservation Office works through the archaeological permitting process. Right now, we're using to say it's outdated software is being very kind. So this would allow us to purchase software from a vendor, and again, kind of automate and modernize the way that we work through the archaeological permitting process. A couple of side notes to this. Over the course of the last decade or so, we've had a lot of agencies and organizations reach out to offer financial support because they know the cost of a system like that. We have not taken advantage of that to this point, but over the course of the next several months, we'll probably be reaching out to some of those organizations and start seeing about what kind of financial support they can offer. Another piece of that, historically, the State Historic Preservation Office is not charged for archaeological permits. It's one of the few, if maybe not one of the last permits in the state of Oregon that is not charged for. As we get this new system, we'll be bringing legislative concept forward to the commission at the April meeting, asking for approval to begin looking at charging for those archaeological permits. The idea behind that being this new system is going to have ongoing costs, and the permitting fees can help offset some of those costs and some other cost recovery for the agency for that work. So again, you'll see legislative concept come forward in April at the next commission meeting. Lastly, Curry, who is our outreach manager within the Heritage section, wanted to make sure that I let you all know that the draft Oregon Heritage Plan is on the website out for public review through the end of March. And really what this plan is, it's a call to action for heritage efforts to unite around common goals kind of throughout the state. And so I wanted to encourage you all to go take a look at that. Like to comment and let me know if you have any questions. That's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate those updates. Any questions or anything for Matt before we move on? Easy peasy. Nice and silly this morning. Wonderful. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item 8, Park Development Division 8A, Cape Lookout with Rob. And this is an action item.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Hill, Director Coons, and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Rob Morris. I'm the engineering lead for OPRD Central Services Park Improvement Division. And the item I'm presenting today is item 8A, the Cape Lookout Parkwide Improvements Construction Contract. This is a request for a construction contract that is part of one of our Go Bond construction projects out at Cape Lookout on the coast. And in your brief, you got a little rundown of the different sort of packages as they're listed of different scope items in the construction contract. And this is kind of been in flux due to the nature of our funding, availability of funding, and also feasibility of completing these different packages. So I'll kind of go through each of these packages so you have an understanding of what the project looks like as of now. We have day use parking improvements. So this would be demolition of the existing parking lot and construction of a completely new parking lot that vastly improves ADA accessibility, pedestrian circulation, as well as traffic circulation. Also incorporates stormwater treatment built into the design. It would provide for fee machines and EV charging stations as our agency moves towards those things, a trash receptacle, and 2 vault toilet buildings. So pretty big impact to the day use area there. The second package is underground electrical. You'll see there's a note, this was omitted due to limited budget. What this entails basically would be taking what is currently overhead electrical lines and putting them underground. The benefit to that is generally they're less likely to be damaged in storms, and they're a little more reliable. You can also upgrade the equipment, but it's not mission critical to this project. And so, in our prioritization of what improvements we need to make to get the best bang out of our buck, this was not something that needed to be done. Would be nice, but it did get eliminated from the project scope. Package 3 is Loop D paving. So this is just a repaving of the roadway and the campsites in Camp Loop D. Package 4 is Loop C and D utilities. So this would be upgrading RV power pedestals up to 50 amp service, which is really important these days for the energy requirements of bigger RVs and campers with just more gear in general. Also would be replacing electrical cabinets, controls, as well as the other utilities in the Camp Loop, the water services, and the standpipes that serve the campsites. And then the fifth portion of the project is the dune restoration, or dune reconstruction, I should say. And so this is to repair an existing foredune that is located between the park and the Camp Loops and kind of acts as a buffer to the elements and the ocean, and has taken a beating from the ocean and from different storm events. So working with Oregon State University to monitor how the dune plays out and get the best solution to repairing the dune to keep that buffer zone in between the Camp Loops and the ocean. I'll just say that there's a lot of different permitting required. Tillamook County, there would be a construction stormwater permit from DEQ required, a development permit through Tillamook County, Army Corps and DSL wetlands permitting. So those have all been taken into account in the design. And as I mentioned, this is a GO bond project. The dune reconstruction would likely actually be funded through FIP, so a little bit of mix of funding there, but predominantly a GO bond project. And so prior action by the commission approved the design and permitting consultant contract for the design of this project in the September 2024 commission meeting. And this contract would be for a construction contract. So the action requested is approval to execute a construction contract not to exceed $5 million for the scope laid out. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Rob. Does anybody have any questions or comments on any of this for Rob?
I have just a comment.
Yep.
I've learned two new words today, revetment and a foredune. So I appreciate the education. Thank you very much.
See, something new every day, right?
Exactly, that's two things.
Commissioner Condor, I think I saw you ready to speak.
Yeah, you knew, Rob, I was going to ask you a question. So on the revetment there, you're trying to replace the cobblestone, or are you coming up with a new design? Are you going to put fabric within the revetment, or how's that going?
So I actually, to be honest, I'm not 100% up on the design that they're putting forward. I just know that, like the sand gets washed away or moves around with the wind. So obviously adding a cobblestone structure would help reinforce the dune and maybe provide some sort of windbreak so the sand could accumulate next to it. So I think it's going to be something more than just piling sand back in the same place. Maybe some planting of native species could be part of that reestablishment too. But from sort of what I see, it's adding sort of a cobble dune, cobble structure, or reestablishing what was a cobble structure to that dune to provide some extra stability, as opposed to just piling sand up.
Thank you.
Commissioner Condor, I can provide a little bit more background on that. Thanks, Rob. This is a revetment dune that was placed in front of Cape Lookout a little over 20 years ago, and it's just past its life cycle. And so we're working with the Ocean Shores team as well to replace and upgrade that dune. The materials that we're going to be using, I know in the past, and JR can probably speak to this as well, has been cobble. There were sandbags and things like that used in the past. I think there's a lot better technology out there and kind of modeling around these foredunes that has happened over the last 20 years that we'll take advantage of. I don't know, JR, if you have any more.
Yeah, I would just add, Master, absolutely right. I think there was a phase in the nineties, early 2000s where there's a handful of these reinforced dune areas where they used kind of these geo bags and filled them with sand, and they're kind of a plastic woven bag to kind of do a core. Cape Lookout is probably the biggest example on our property, but there's a couple others up and down the coast. As repairs, we've been using cobble as opposed to completely tearing the dune apart and rebuilding it. We've used natural material, and cobble to kind of try to reinforce it, but over the last few years, those bags are starting to fail. We're starting to see kind of larger scale failure of the dune. And so cobble probably isn't gonna fix it long-term anymore, or much more before we see maybe a potential catastrophic failure of those bags inside breaking through. And so I think the idea is, yeah, actually doing a larger scale rebuild on it.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks for the backup, Matt and JR. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Perillo.
Good Chair. Hi, Rob. Good to see you. I really appreciated the tour that staff gave us last year when we were out there to kind of walk us through some of these projects. I'm focusing on the utilities for the C&D project, because and from what you folks have told us, is really this growing demand from our camping community that's really affecting us. So, what's the potential timing and balance so that we don't effectively lose revenue as far as during the high season?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because when you're working on the coast, there are, you have to balance the ability to do work, in the winter is often affects what you can do. So for like large paving projects, it's really hard to do that in the winter. Deep underground projects on the coast, it's really hard to do that in the winter. So all that to be said, the conversations that we had were, to redo these utilities, we would have to shut down the camp loops. And we would be looking at probably a fall window of construction to shut down the camp loops. As you've said, we recognize that that's peak visitation for our coastal parks and would definitely affect revenue. But it's really a matter of, and this is often something we talk about with the contractors when we bring them on board, is like, what are your capabilities? Like, do you have the capability to, use well points to dewater to a point where you can install something deep in, the middle of the winter or something like that. And so once we get the contractor on board, we'll look at opportunities for them to do work in winter season where they can, so that the closures don't affect the peak season as much. But based on the timeline of this project, which we're trying to get out the door as soon as possible and construct within 2026, it will likely, start up in the fall and then move into the winter. So there will be impacts to both the C and D loops, and from what I understand, the A and B loops will need to be closed as well, just for construction access and basically safety the public. So it will affect the closure for camp loops, and will likely part of it will be in the fall season.
Thank you, Ron. I would just make the comment, and this is beyond the engineering of what needs to be done, that staff might consider proactively consider the public relations aspect of what's happening here, because Parks has, we've made hard and appropriate decisions, I think, in regards to changing pricing and things of that sort. And so, and then folks may feel a double whammy of losing accessibility. So I think there's some thought that might need to go into how we're communicating this, so it becomes win-win and doesn't sneak up on us. But thank you so much for the good work. I appreciate the update.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Perillo. And I'll just mention that we as project managers, as we plan for these Go Bond projects and construct the Go Bond projects, we give updates to communications that can put them on our website and on project update pages. So that's one way that we try to, if we foresee foreclosures or if something's going to, take longer than we think, that's one tool we use to try to communicate with the public. But just one of many tools. So.
Great comments, Commissioner Perlow. Commissioner Spence.
Hey, thanks, Rob. You used the word FIP, which is that just State Parks word for capital improvement budget, basically?
Yes,
General fund.
Facilities improvement. Yeah.
Yeah, in my world, it's just general fund capital improvement. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for helping us with acronyms, staff. But we don't necessarily speak the same language all the time.
I'm sorry. I was new to this agency once too,
No,
and I
you're-
understand
I get
the
it.
difficulty
All
with
of our
acronyms.
worlds.
So yeah.
I appreciate it. It looks like Commissioner Izumi you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Rob, for that background information. I am wondering, just given budget constraints, and I've only been on the commission for a few years, but oftentimes, as expected, once construction starts, it turns out that the project is more expensive than anticipated, right? There's like materials cost increases, new issues that are uncovered once construction begins. And so I'm wondering, like, given all of these different packages, if construction is able to be staged in a way that if there is a substantial cost increase that's unexpected, where like we won't feel like, okay, we've invested so much already, we just have to approve more funds for this project. Is there a way to do it? Like, is there a way to, I guess, carry out the construction so that if costs are substantially higher than we anticipated, we could actually just say, okay, well, we're not going to do, for example, package 3.
Yeah, I mean, great question, Commissioner Izumi, and you kind of led right to it. The reason we broke it out into these packages is so that we have the ability, when the bids come in. We also, of course, include, we have the cost estimate, and then we include contingency on what we think. And I totally understand everybody's, since the pandemic, prices have been really volatile. It's been really tough to accurately estimate the cost of these projects. I really do think we're in a lot better place, like just within the last year and a half, at having real costs in these projects and estimating them. I'll just, reference, the Beverly Beach Go Bond project, which actually came in like right around market value and really didn't have any significant overruns. So that, that's one thing that we learned from in costing it. But to your point, we always want to have that flexibility. If bids come in and one portion is super high, we can remove that from the project and say, okay, we're only going to hire you for these certain portions of the project. And that's why you have it broken out into packages. As I said, we already eliminated the underground electrical package just because we knew that, with costs coming in and us trying to keep the scope as focused to immediate needs as possible, that probably wasn't going to go through. Another thing we could do is the dune reconstruction could be its own standalone project in the future. So, I talked to the project manager a little bit about this, and if it ends up that cost sort of bumps us over, comfort level, or we don't think, we're going to get great value out of that, we could break that out as a separate project and just run it separately. Another way to sort of reduce costs. But yeah, we've pared this project down quite a bit already and have been really conscious of trying to just address the major immediate needs for the park. But yeah, we do try to retain that flexibility of having different bid items that could potentially be removed from the bid if we don't need the contractor to do it, or if it's not in our best interest at the time.
Great. Any other questions for Rob? Okay, seeing none. We do need to vote on this. So the action requested is for approval to execute a construction contract not to exceed $5 million for Cape Lookout Park-wide improvement projects.
So moved, Commissioner Spence.
Thank you, Commissioner Spence. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Condor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Seeing none. Are there any abstentions? No. Okay, this is approved. Thank you, Rob. Thanks for your work on this. I guess we get to stay with you, though. We're going to go on to 8B, Lake Owyhee.
Yeah, thanks. For the record, Chair Hill, Director Coons, members of the commission, for the record, again, Rob Morris, engineering lead for Park Improvement Central Services here at OPRD. This item 8B is for Lake Owyhee State Park construction contract. This is a project that helps improve the water utility and also helps create some RV camping pads and has some sewer work involved in it. So I'll kind of run through the project a little more in detail. So Lake Owyhee is on federal land. It's managed through an agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation. And so we're working with them on this whole project. They have to approve everything we do. And there is grant funding available. My understanding is there is funding available through BOR to help with this project. However, they issued they told us, they gave us a letter that said they approved of the project, but they can't, give us the funds until we actually get approval for the project through our own means. So that's kind of why I'm here now. But basically, this is going to be improvements to the water treatment system. The water filtration sediment tank needs to be replaced. And so we would replace that and then provide new treated water lines from the reservoir, which is at the treatment center, all the way down to the shop and cabin area. And so this is sort of like the maintenance area of the Lake Owyhee Management Unit. And then because housing is so difficult out there to find for rangers and seasonal staff, we're actually taking the opportunity to construct 4 new RV camping pads that could be occupied. These are not camping pads designed for visitors. These are designed for seasonal staff and camp hosts and stuff like that. So replacing this water line going down to the office would actually help serve these campsites, these new campsites that we're creating as well. And along with the water improvements, there's also sewer and electrical improvements that will be running to these campsites so that the hosts or the seasonal workers that occupy these sites would have full hookups. And then it also involves the sewer hookups to those campsites would be fed to an on-site sewer disposal system, which would be put in with this project, and that would be in conformance with the county permitting for on-site sewage disposal. So design and permitting documents were completed in June of 2025 and updated in January of this year for bidding. The engineer's estimate for this project is 1.05 million, so right about 1 million on the nose. And that includes a contingency, like I had mentioned. The anticipated project schedule would be to put this out basically as soon as we can and start construction again as soon as we can, sometime in the spring, maybe moving into summer a little bit. So yeah, that's no anticipated revenue impacts because of this project, because like I said, we're not affecting any campsites that we're actually renting out. These would just be staff campsites. And, you know, replacing the sedimentation tank at the water source would likely be a pretty minimal interruption to water supply. So pretty minimal impacts to the park on this one. We will need archaeological monitoring pretty heavily on this one. And so we've already coordinated that. And then, yeah, we just looking to put it out and get it built as soon as possible. So action requested would be approval to execute a construction contract not to exceed $1.1 million. And yeah, I'll answer any questions.
Thanks, Rob.
If you have any.
That was thorough. Anybody have any questions though for Rob? Not seeing any. I'm glad we're still able to move forward on some of these projects though.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion for the action requested to approve and execute a construction contract not to exceed $1.1 million for the Lake Owyhee State Park construction projects.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Perullo. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Izumi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Seeing none and no abstentions, it is passed. Great. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you all.
All right, we're moving on to agenda item 9A, rulemaking, request to open rulemaking for the county opportunity grants. And this is an action item with Robert.
Chair Hill, Director Assumption, or Director Coons, wrote it down. I was looking at it. Director Coons, members of the commission, Katie Gauthier here. Robert is out, so I'm covering this one. With agenda 9A, request to open rulemaking for the County Opportunity Grant Program. Just a little bit of background, and Michelle Scalise is here as well if you have questions about this program. It's within the grants and community programs section. The County Opportunity Grant Program provides financial assistance to county park and recreation areas with camping facilities. It's funded through the RV registration fees, and it is covered under the Division 7 administrative rules. So that describes the definitions, eligibility, scoring, administration, and committee membership. We have not changed these rules for quite some time, so the proposal would be to open rulemaking to clarify the current practices, improve some of the administrative clarity, and update references and application requirements and scoring criteria, and add some post-award responsibilities. And this just outlines a little bit of the proposed updates. We would add a rule around conversion requirements and emergency procedures, update the advisory committee, and formalize some of the requirements that have been utilized for this program. If you approve opening this rule, we will convene a rule advisory committee made up of members of county park and recreation districts and the Association of Oregon Counties. The only applicants for this grant program are counties, so we will make sure that some of the applicants are included in a rule advisory committee, and they would review the draft rules that you have in your packet, and then we would open it up for public comment and have a virtual hearing, and then bring it back to you later this spring for your proposed adoption. These rules have not been changed in 30 years, so that is really the main impetus for looking at changes to those rules. So with that, staff requests you open rulemaking to amend the recreational vehicle license fee revenue rules, which cover the County Opportunity Grant Program. Those are the Division 7 rules. Happy to take questions.
I have one quick question, Chair Hill.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Griggs.
On the post-award requirements, are they currently not required to report back on how they use those dollars?
Michelle, do you want to cover that, take that one?
Yes, I'm sorry, I couldn't tell who asked the question, but Commissioner,
It's
yes.
just changed.
Commissioner Griggs.
Commissioner Griggs, yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the question. So during the project period, so they receive a grant award, there is a grant agreement. They do have to report back during the grant period of how the dollars are being used. It's a reimbursement grant program. There also are responsibilities, right, to keep this open to the public, but right now, you know, for a certain amount of years, most of our programs require either 25 years or in perpetuity, depending on the type of program, but that is absent in the existing rules. However, all of our other rules that we have for similar grant programs do have this conversion requirement in it. And so we do want to, you know, any investments that we want to make sure that we're protecting those for a certain amount of time, and that those investments are available to the public for at least 25 years.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. As you form the advisory committee, how many folks are you envisioning on this? And can you explain a little bit about how you go about getting the word out to get folks on the advisory committee?
Chair Hill, we will work with folks who have been, and Michelle, please feel free to add in here because we will work, it'll be a joint between the grant program and government relations to convene the rule advisory committee, but we would work with the grant committee that has been reviewing rules such as this and have members, either current or former members of the grant review committee. And we also will work with the Oregon Association of Counties and have a member from Oregon Association of Counties on the rule advisory committee. Typically, we have 7, with this type of grant rulemaking, we would have 7 to 12 members of the rule advisory committee. Probably on a smaller number because it is such a niche rulemaking that there are not a huge number of people that are interested in this. So the people who are very interested, but not a wide variety. But Michelle, do you have additional information about who we're reaching out to?
Katie, Chair Hill, yeah, good question. And Katie covered that really well. Yes, we'll, start by reaching out to our existing grant committee members and those organizations that Katie mentioned. And we will it's important to us to get that word out as widely as possible, to ORPA, the Oregon Recreation Parks Association, their counties division will be involved. So yeah, we definitely, that's going to be our next steps. If we kind of are compiling names and contacts right now, and as soon as if so approved, we'll move forward with reaching out to those contacts and getting the Rule Advisory Committee moving.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I think, getting the word out to the counties and through AOC is going to be valuable. And as many folks, I mean, since this hasn't been open since what, 1980, is that what was in the document?
It's
a long time.
Yes, it's severely outdated. It's time.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's other opportunities identified from the users and applicants of these grants to expand eligibilities, to deal with other things within this rulemaking that maybe they've been thinking about, challenges on their end, and how money can better be utilized in their communities. So it'd be great to have, representation from there. And I know sometimes it's hard to get folks engaged. Everybody's spread out so far, but I appreciate all the work that's going to go into getting folks on this committee for a broad representation of those counties.
Thank you, Chair Hill. Yes, I'm looking forward to it as well. I always like these opportunities for rulemaking and to get ideas on how to better serve our applicants and users and communities.
Yeah, great opportunity. Any other questions for Katie or Michelle? All right. Seeing none, this is an action item. So the request on the table is for Oh, let me make sure permission to open up the recreational vehicle license fee revenue rules, OAR 736-007-0000 through 0050. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second for this one?
Second.
I'm going to go with Commissioner Izumi on that one. All right.
She's refueled. She's on it.
I know.
Like
It was like a split second before you. But I appreciate the eagerness. So unless there's further comment or questions, we'll go ahead and move forward with a vote on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition to this? Seeing none. Are there any abstentions? None. All right. So approved. Thank you both very much. Okay. And that is, let's see, rates and reservations. So we are moving on to request to adopt rulemaking 736-015 rates and reservations, also with Katie, and this is agenda item 9C.
Thank you, Chair Hill, Director Coons, members of the commission. Katie Gauthier here with agenda item 9C, a request to adopt amendments for Division 15. And with me is Caleb Dixon, our market research analyst, who will discuss the cancellation policy changes. So we are here to look at our Division 15 rules, which includes rules for reservation, rates, and fee waivers. The proposed changes look at cancellation policy, changes to our special access pass program, rate ranges, day use parking fees, and fee waivers. We're going to describe a little bit about the proposed changes, and then we'll go over the public comment that was received and staff recommendation based on the public comments that were received. But first, we'll describe the proposed changes. So the reason we are looking at these rule changes are really to look at our budget shortfall. The rising, as we've discussed earlier today, the rising operational cost, increased visitation, and reduction in our projected lottery costs are creating a difficulty for the agency, and looking at these park user fees increases are one avenue to address that shortfall. We know that visitor fees do not cover the full cost of park operations, and as we don't receive general fund for operations, we need to do something in order to address the revenue shortfall. The proposed changes are designed to improve the agency financial sustainability, maximize campsite availability, and improve the quality of visitor experiences. We're really looking at these changes as an opportunity to keep parks open, well maintained, and sustainably funded for future generations. So I'll turn it to Caleb to look at the reservation and cancellation changes.
Thanks, Katie. So when we're looking at reservations and cancellations, we're kind of identifying a number of problems happening that have been building up over the years. So the first is our cancellation rate has been steadily climbing. And for the last couple of years, we've been at about 25% of reservations ultimately being canceled. And that's even higher when we look at the summer months, it's pushing to close to 30%. And what we see is that a lot of people book far in advance, they hold on to those sites, and then they cancel kind of pretty close to arrival, kind of like last minute within the last few weeks. And what that means is that if people don't know how to play this game, then they don't book those sites. And that can lead to, one, a bad customer experience for, again, people who don't know this game, but also it can lead to empty sites. And we also have the problem that, of no-shows and empty sites that way. And a big part of this problem is that our current rules related to cancellations are very forgiving. And so people can even no-show and still get a reasonable amount of their fund or their fees refunded. So the solution is a policy that will incentivize earlier cancellations and as well as discourage no-shows, hoping to improve that customer experience and to bolster our occupancy so that sites don't sit empty. So looking at this chart here, I'm kind of break down what the current rules are compared to the proposed rules. So as far as cancellations go, the current rule allows for a full refund of your usage fees as long as you cancel more than 3 days out. That means that you can book 6 months in advance and hold that reservation all the way until 3 days before arrival and still receive a full refund. The proposed rule is going to lead to refund amounts being based on how long a reservation is held and how close to the stay it is canceled. And I'll talk about the actual details of that on the next slide. For special access pass users, in the current rule, when they cancel, their nights are refunded to their pass. And in the proposed rule, there will be some modifications to be consistent with the rules for general campers, where essentially they will not receive the full refund depending on, or the refunded nights will depend on how close to arrival they cancel. Now, looking at the no-shows, in the current rule, this is where you really see how forgiving the current rule is. If you no-show, I mean, you don't show up at all, you don't tell anybody about it, you would lose your first night's fee, but you'd still be refunded the remaining nights. So if you have a 3-night stay and you just don't show up at all, you would still receive a refund for 2 nights. In the similar case with the special access pass. And so in both cases, under the proposed rule, there'd be no refund for a no-show. So if you have 3 nights and you don't show up, you lose the 3 nights. Next slide, please. Now this chart here outlines how the refunds for general camping would be determined. And so it looks a little complicated, but really it comes down to answering 2 questions. The first is, when did you make your reservation? Was it over 4 months ago, which would put your refund amount in that left column, or was it 4 months ago or less, which would put your refund in the right column? And then the rows are related to how many days is it until arrival. So how far in advance are you canceling before the arrival? And so the top row there is for people canceling 31 days or more before arrival, so about a month. The next row is 7 to 30 days, so about 1 week to 1 month in advance of arrival. And then the final row is 1 to 6 days. So within a week of arrival, this is kind of last minute. And you can see that the refund amounts are lowest for people in that bottom row who are canceling the closest to arrival. And I like to kind of illustrate this chart looking at the 2 extremes. So in the top right corner, we have a 100% refund. This is for campers who booked 4 months ago or less, so they haven't really held it that long. And when I'm talking about holding it, I mean talking about holding up that inventory, making it look as though that inventory is taken. So these folks booked 4 months ago or less, and they're canceling more than a month before arrival. So those are the behaviors we want to incentivize. That gives other people ample opportunity to rebook that site. And then on the other extreme, in the bottom left corner, there's a 25% refund. And this is for folks who've held a reservation for over 4 months. So they've held that inventory for a long time, and they're canceling within a week of arrival. So they're more or less canceling at the last minute. So those are the 2 behaviors that this policy is meant to disincentivize. And like I said, there'd be no refund for a no-show. So if they would still be incentivized to cancel at the last minute, because a 25% refund is still better than a 0%. Next slide, please. Now the next topic is related to dynamic pricing and ultimately expanding the rate ranges that the agency is allowed to charge. So a few months ago, I spoke to you about our rate review and looking at where our rates sit within the current camping market in Oregon. And because we're already at the top of our rate ranges, we see that our current rate ranges don't really allow for any flexibility to, one, be aligned with the camping rate market, but also then to really have flexibility to respond to changes in demand as well as rising costs into the future. So the solution is to update these rate ranges, allowing for that future flexibility to have rates vary based on demand, both throughout time and across the state. And then also, again, really just responding to having that future flexibility. So this is, in this case, we're looking at updating the reservation fee ranges to reflect future costs. And just to clarify, updating the ranges for camping rates, reservation fees, what that does is it's updating the minimum and maximum allowable rates for now and in the future. It doesn't actually change the rates that are currently being charged. Those rates have already been set for the next year. So just because the range has a top end, it doesn't mean that these fees will immediately jump to the top end of the range. It's again building in the flexibility to use demand-based pricing across, seasons. Could be even day of week. We know certain days are more popular than other days. Certain holidays like July 4th, Memorial Day, also very popular. And then site amenities as well. So allowing us to have more dynamic or variable pricing, again, across time and space, and ultimately to support that long-term revenue stability while maintaining high-quality park services. I think I'm
So
handing it back
next-
to Katie.
Great, thank you, Caleb. Next in our proposed changes is looking at the day use parking permit fees. We are looking at changing the rate ranges. Again, as Caleb described, it does not increase the current rates charged, but provides flexibility for future potential increases. You will note that the 24-month permits are still on here, so that even though we're not currently offering them this year, it would allow us to offer them in the future if that was determined to be a good idea. The proposed changes also allow for the license plate integration. Right, it provides language to allow input of a license plate instead of a printed tag. So we are doing this currently. It just provides that option so you don't have to display your printed tag on. And then changes to our vendor fees. Currently, vendor fees for when we have a partner that's offering the annual permit, those are wrapped into the total price of a permit. This would allow them to be added on top with a maximum vendor fee set by the director each year. So they would be added to the total cost of a permit instead of incorporated within the price of a permit. And next is the special access pass proposed changes. So the special access pass program provides free camping and day use to service-connected disabled veterans, foster families, and adoptive foster families. The program has grown substantially since it first began in 2005. And so we've proposed some changes to the program to keep it sustainable for the long term. The proposed changes would limit the program both on the veteran side and the adoptive and foster family side to Oregon residents. It would limit in the proposed rules, we'll talk about staff recommendation later, but the proposed rule changes that we received public comment on would change the camping benefit from 10 nights per month to 10 nights annually. They would continue to receive free day use parking across the state at any park, and then changing the cancellation policy for any participants so that they would lose the benefits if they didn't cancel ahead of time. The other proposed changes in the rules look at adding an overnight parking site type. So that's for people who aren't camping, but that we're leaving vehicles. We have some parks where that is an option. So it's adding that site type. Changes to State Parks Day. Currently, we offer free camping on State Parks Day. The proposed changes would move that to only free parking for Oregon residents. Making some changes to our marketing and promotional waivers, and then clarifying the use of gift certificates and how those are processed now that we have electronic gift certificates instead of paper ones. So public comment for these changes were opened. I guess before we go, were there any changes on the proposed rules? Any questions on the proposed changes? Then we'll move into the public comment portion. The public comments were open from December 1st through January 15th. We received 745 comments. The chart indicates the areas where the topics that comments were received on. You'll note that that's more than 745. That's because people commented on multiple things within one comment. 70% of all of the comments were around the special access pass, with most of them being concerned about the impact to veterans. For the cancellation policy, we had 184 comments, and a strong majority of those were in support of that change. Dynamic pricing was around 100 comments with less support for that change. And then we had a smaller number of folks commenting on the day use parking permit changes around license plates and concern over limiting only to license plates and not having paper permits. So for the special access pass, the themes of the comments were really around the importance of the program for the mental and physical health of service-connected disabled veterans and how important that program has been to their families and their ability to reintegrate back into the community after their service. Concern about the impact on accessibility for those individuals to be in parks and their fixed incomes, and just the potential change in how it felt for their recognition and gratitude for their service. We did receive strong concern over the scale of the reduction and whether that was a fair change. So we wanted to just cover a little bit about the Special Access Pass program. Currently, there are around 41,000 participants overall. The majority of them are the veterans, that's around 93%. When we talk about discount value too, I think it's important to understand that's looking at the amount of fees we waive for revenue we would have received had somebody been a paying customer versus receiving the discount. So 41,000 pass holders, most of the discount goes to veteran pass holders. The foster and adoptive foster families, a significant majority are Oregon residents. About a third of the service-connected disabled veterans are from out of state. Overall, 80% use fewer than 10 nights per year, with the average stay per reservation being 3.2 nights. And 87% of stays are 5 nights or less. This program as a whole is $4.8 million per biennium and growing as the number of participants grow. The passes, each pass is good for 10 years and then it's renewable. Depending on how, for the foster and adoptive foster families, the children have to be within under 18, or if they're developmentally disabled, it can be under 26. So the staff recommendation for the Special Access Pass program is to continue to limit the proposal to limit to Oregon residents when they're renewing. So any of the current pass holders that are out of state would continue to keep their pass until it expires. We would recommend revising the proposal to allow for a monthly camping benefit. We heard strong comments that people wanted to be able to camp each month, and we're concerned with the reduction to only 10 nights per year would limit their ability to camp each month. So the staff recommendation would be to go to 4 nights per month of free camping, continue to have free day use parking for pass holders. We would increase the replacement value. It's free to get the permit, but if somebody needs to replace it, right now we charge $5, but it costs us more than $5 to replace the permit. So that would move to $10. And we would work with the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs on communication of this change, and particularly communication around any impacts to veterans that without housing. Now moving to the cancellation policy, some of the themes that we heard were a strong support for stricter cancellation rules. We heard many stories from people who felt like they couldn't get a reservation, but then they would come to the park and see a site next to them empty. Sometimes that's a perception and we don't always see, but there were definitely strong interest in having more availability of reservations and encouraging people to cancel earlier. Desire for fairness and transparency. There were some concerns about impacts on if there were emergencies or things outside of their control and their lack of ability to cancel late at the last minute if they had some of those changes. And then impacts to special access pass holders. So the staff recommendation would be to move forward with the rules as proposed. Refunds would be allowed for medical emergencies as they are currently, so we would not propose making changes to that process. So for anyone who has car troubles or has a medical emergency, we provide a refund and we would continue to do that. And there would be an availability of the director's discretion on additional refund opportunities. As far as implementation, reservation holders would be notified of the proposed changes going into effect, and then they would have a month to make any changes to the reservation without any impacts. And then we would have this implemented April 6th for ongoing reservations. And then we have the ability within our reservation system to notify reservation holders when it's within just a little above a week from their reservation or coming, that if they don't make a change to the reservation, if they don't cancel, then they would receive a reduced refund if they did end up canceling. So we would notify individually reservation holders as their reservations were coming up. Caleb, did you have any additional information you wanted to share on that?
Yeah, so like Katie mentioned, there'd be the plan is to have a mass email go out to all current reservation holders. So they have the month of March to cancel under the current policy if they decide to. But then once the policy is in effect, there'll be an automated email 10 days before arrival. So that bottom row is the harshest or the lowest refund amounts. So they would get kind of a warning before they reach that final row. And that way they would have a chance to cancel if they know, let's say 8 days in advance instead of 6, where it would trigger the lower refund.
For dynamic pricing, much of this we've been doing as we have the rate ranges. This isn't a new concept, but there were concerns around equity and affordability and access comparisons to the private sector. So there are concerns among commenters about how this policy will be implemented. And we continue to hear concerns about affordability. So that is an ongoing concern that we need to monitor. License plates, we did hear concerns about privacy and what happens with the data. And then concerns around flexibility if we move to a system where license plates were the only option and we did away with paper print pass options, there were some concerns there. So as far as staff recommendation for this portion, we would recommend moving ahead with the proposed rules. We will continue they're necessary to ensure the financial sustainability of the agency, with the note that we are concerned about affordability and want to make sure that we're reviewing the impacts of the proposed changes and looking for opportunities for affordability options as we move forward. As far as the license plate process, we have worked with our vendor to make sure that we are following all data standards and
based on the department's goal to promote that.
Not sharing data. It does not record where people go from place to place. It's only where they purchase the permit at that point in time. So we are not proposing at this time eliminating paper passes completely, but at some point in the future that may be an option depending on technology and visitor behavior.
Great.
So that is our presentation. Happy to answer questions. I know that that's a lot, so we can go back to any slide that you might have additional questions on.
Yeah, let's open it up for questions and discussion from the commission. I'll start with Commissioner Perullo.
Thank you very much. I know this is, I know staff has put a lot of work in that. I have maybe 2 questions, and this is regarding the no-show and the cancellation policies. For the cancellation policies, is there a time of day that you're enacting? Like, in the hotel industry, it's 4 p.m., for instance. I mean, is there a standard time that you're going to be activating it? That's my first question. Second question is on no-shows. In the situation where you have someone who no-shows and perhaps has had a multiple 4 or 5 day RV spot for something of that sort and does arrive the second day, have they, will you have language in there that they are, after the next day, they're losing their continual access to the spots so that the hosts have opportunities to resell it so it doesn't sit there empty? So just curious how you're handling those two situations.
Caleb, do you want to answer those?
Yeah, kind of a related answer. The answers kind of go into one explanation. So a no-show is in effect if the person doesn't call or notify the park by 1 p.m. the following day. So if you're supposed to arrive on a Friday, then you need to either call or notify by 1 p.m. on a Saturday. And then the language is that if you no-show and you reach that 1 p.m. point, you will not be refunded and the remainder of your stay will be canceled. So I think that answers both parts, right? Okay.
We are using the date of arrival as midnight. So if they don't arrive by the date of by midnight, they wouldn't, one day ahead, they wouldn't receive that refund.
Commissioner Izumi.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Katie. I know that this is a tremendous amount of work, and I appreciate all of the effort that staff put into carefully thinking about all the moving pieces. I have two questions. One is just a very simple question. For the cancellation, the chart, why was 4 months chosen?
Caleb, do you want to?
Yeah, so we kind of worked, there was a work group made up of field staff, myself, folks from IT, and what we did was we reviewed a lot of other policies from other states as well as federal government, private campgrounds. And 4 months was chosen because a lot of times that when we're looking at the close to arrival, it's 1 month. So kind of 1 month out. So if we're thinking of like the arrival to the booking window of 6 months, you have this 1 month. And if we did 5 months or 3 months or something, we didn't feel like 3 months was long enough. But if we went to 5 months, if you held it for 5 months, then you automatically would hit that 1 month to arrival. And so it kind of would eliminate the possibilities. And so 4 months was kind of chosen in accordance with that 6 month window. And one of the benefits of the change is that the policy is not going to be written into rule. Currently, it's a rule, so it's much more complicated to change it. But by making it a policy, we also have the flexibility now to make changes kind of as needed. So if we see that 4 months isn't working, then we would have the ability to much more easily change the policy than if it was to remain in rule.
Thank you. My second question has to do with the dynamic pricing. And I understand, dynamic pricing really makes sense from a long-term sustainability perspective, given our budget constraints, but I am concerned that people with the fewest resources would be left with the least desirable times to camp. And I'm thinking about my own family, 5 children, 7 people. The only thing that we could do for vacation was go camping. Everything else was too expensive. And so I'm wondering how in implementing dynamic pricing, is there a point at which dynamic pricing would be triggered versus just deciding okay, August is the most popular time for these very desirable campsites, and so these are just going to be at a higher rate. Could somebody theoretically, reserve those spots 6 months in advance and plan to go without the higher rate. I know that that really could complicate things, and I don't have a good sense of the work involved in setting up that kind of dynamic pricing, but I'm wondering if there are, what I'm just trying to get at is, are there ways to still be able to ensure that people with the fewest resources, the largest families, could still take a vacation in a beautiful spot? Thank you.
So I'll start and Caleb fill in as well. It is, Commissioner Izumi, affordability and access is something that we are very concerned about. We have had different prices for summer rates versus winter rates for some time, so that piece isn't new. This would allow the opportunity to do it on a more variable by park or by site type. We are looking at options to do that, but would continue to evaluate where we can create some opportunities for access as well. But it is an ongoing conversation and something that we continue to look at how we can both maintain financial sustainability for the agency as well as access and affordability. I don't know, Caleb, if you have other thoughts on that.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, these rate ranges are really, they're meant to align with the middle of the camping market, so not at the top, or at least give us the ability to align with the middle of the market and to kind of account for, let's say, future inflation or rising costs. They're not, they're not saying we're going to charge as much as the highest charging campgrounds. So that's one thing, is they're still built with affordability and being, like I said, a middle market option. But again, the middle market has changed a lot as well over, I know it was mentioned earlier about inflation with construction costs. It's affected, the consumer side of camping as well. So that's one aspect. And then because we've always had a history of maintaining affordable tent rates in particular, that has also been baked into the rate ranges going forward as well.
I'm going to tack on a question to that just because we're talking about it. How do we expect to monitor and monitor affordability and accessibility? Like, what tactics and how are we collecting that data going forward to ensure the public has access and is able to afford these campsites going forward?
That's Commissioner Hill, that's a great question. And we do have some demographic data, so we can utilize the demographic data that we do have to look at who is camping, and looking at, as Caleb said, the tent sites are the more affordable option. So looking at reservation and occupancy data for some of our more affordable options, and working with community organizations, we can monitor it that way. And Caleb, as our data analyst, may have some other options that I'm not thinking.
Yeah, we monitor, annually as best that we can, the demographic data we're able to put together through our camping transactions, and trying to track some of those trends. It is tough because the data, we are limited by the data that we have to some degree. So kind of, I think, looking at it from tracking what we can demographically. Two is tracking the camping market, because that's also going to give us some reflection of affordability as well, because some of those private campgrounds are going to be pretty responsive to shifts in demand. And if affordability becomes an issue across Oregon, that's going to be reflected in the market prices as well. And then I think Katie may have mentioned it, but having a number of other avenues with community groups, programming, and trying to kind of stay connected there to understand if those are, to understand to what extent those issues are present.
Do we have access to BLM and Forest Service camping data? And their sites tend to be significantly lower in cost, mostly because they just don't offer the amenities that we do. But one would assume that that would be more accessible because of the lower cost. Are we able to get our hands on that data of annually, how many sites are filled, the costs for each site per night, those sorts of things?
We
Or is that
can
just
we include some of that in our rate review.
Mhm.
And it typically, again, it gets into what's a comparable site because they're typically offering primitive sites. So they are, but they're comparable to the rates we charge for primitive sites, right? So it's kind of that one-to-one comparison. Um, but in terms of the other data, some of it's available. Sometimes though they don't collect data on the smaller scale where we would know, at a particular, or should say they don't publish the data on a smaller scale. It's done at larger scales, like at the regional level as well. So we can do some comparisons there, but and we could request it too if we were doing a deeper analysis as well to do like a public records request for occupancy at some of those parks. But in terms of their visitor demographics and so forth, they tend to do it at a larger scale.
Okay, that's helpful. I'll let somebody else ask some questions. Commissioner Condor.
Yeah, I was looking, I was looking for some clarity on that cancellation policy where it seems like the public their input was they would like to have medical emergencies, vehicle repairs, and other situations as part of their refund. I mean, I just, I don't understand that part of it. It's like anybody could call up and say, well, my vehicle broke down, so I need a refund. I mean, how do we verify any of this stuff?
Commissioner Condor, it is very much, we recognize that anybody could do that. Typically, we haven't had an issue with more people saying it's not something that happens a significant amount of time. So it's another thing that we will have to continue to watch and see if we're getting more requests. But we don't anticipate having any requirements that they show proof at this point. That's something we could do in the future if it becomes an issue, but for the most part, our visitors are pretty good about their forthrightness with their car repairs or medical issues.
Well, we've been pretty good at giving refunds back, so it hasn't really.
It's one of the things that we will have to evaluate on an ongoing basis to see if it becomes a concern.
Okay.
Commissioner Spence.
Thanks. I was just tacking on to the dynamic pricing, so maybe I should have jumped in earlier, but I agree with Commissioner Izumi's affordability. However, we do have amenities that was mentioned in some of the comments, like the yurts or the 50 amp sites, to me are not accessible items. Those are luxury items that we should be modeling after, and I'll defer to Commissioner Perullo's hotel experience, but if I just don't see that as an accessibility issue. To me, dynamic pricing, those are, I mean, if you have a 50 amp site, you have a $100,000 plus motorhome that plugs into that, right? So for me, the tent sites are key. The other sites, the other public access pieces are really important. And also, I want to point out this is a key point of educating the public on we're not funded by general fund dollars, so we have to get creative with pricing. And I'm sorry, but we don't have any other support from the legislature. If you want cheaper pricing and more accessibility, we need to lobby for that. And by we, I mean you need to lobby for that if you're complaining about it. So that's just my 2 cents. I get really frustrated with people saying that, well, we don't want to pay dynamic pricing for a 50 amp site when it's a luxury item. So I'll get off my little soapbox. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spence. I think Commissioner Izumi had her hand up next.
Yeah, just a quick clarification, and I'm sorry if I missed this sooner, but is the dynamic, does the dynamic pricing, when is it set? like I don't think I totally understand how dynamic pricing works. Like when I book a hotel, if I book, 6 months, a year in advance, it's usually cheaper than, if I'm booking closer to the date and there are fewer opportunities available anywhere. So is this something that is set at the beginning of this? When are the prices set, I guess is the question.
So currently, we have not instituted the dynamic pricing that you're talking about, where it's an automated system. Currently, we've done more like a variable pricing, like Katie mentioned, rates have been higher in the summer, higher on week, and for the next year, the rates that we put in place are higher in the summer at the most popular parks and higher in weekends in the off season. So that's the initial. So this is more of a giving us the flexibility in the future to do more dynamic pricing and to explore that. And the initial movement has been this kind of variation during higher demand times. But currently we're at the top of the ranges, so we can't do really anything else. And so then having broader ranges will allow for more variation, which could then turn into dynamic pricing as we keep going forward. And what you bring up is something that would be explored, right? Is what would make sense in terms of, is it looking at the booking window? Is it strictly looking at the time of year, day of week, park, things like that? So we're kind of continuing to learn how people respond to what we've done up to this point and what's in place for next summer, and using that into the future for pricing strategies.
Commissioner Perullo.
Well, we knew there wouldn't be any discussion on this thing at all, didn't we, coming into it? I just wanted to circle back on a couple things. One, Commissioner Condor, I think that makes a pretty interesting point. I mean, ultimately, we have to treat people as professional adults or something of that sort, and really set the standard high to what an emergency is, versus giving someone the back door saying, hey, the dog ate my homework, my car didn't run today, so I should get a refund. So I think that was a really astute point. I also think the point that Commissioner Spence made was important also, is that there's a differentiating. We're talking about dry camping versus RV camping that has significant impact and investment by parks. I mean, today during this meeting alone, we talked about a $5 million bond-driven improvement. A lot of it was electrical, a lot of it was dump stations and things of that sort. So there is a cost of doing business. I do think, however, as I reflect on everything that we have talked about in regards to rate changing over the past cycle, that if we would come back to review anything, I'm a little concerned. I'm having a little concern that's growing within me regarding the Parks Day that we've backed off on. After hearing Sarah had talked about that, that generates $40,000. Well, $40,000 is nothing to sneeze at. However, aligning our mission to keep people excited about outdoor recreation and making outdoor recreation accessible to Oregonians, I'm just starting to wonder if that was the one step that we might need to revisit. Is it one step too far? So those are my multiple wrap-up thoughts.
Commissioner Perullo, would you mind clarifying a little bit further about, I think you cut out for a little bit of it, or I didn't quite understand what you wanted readdress the date. Was it day use fee or the?
No, I'm sorry, a little throaty here. And this is less the day rental. I'm thinking holistically about the parking fees that we've put in and things of that sort. And one of the clawbacks that we had was removing that National Parks Day, Oregon Parks Day. Okay. And I'm just wondering, is that a little bit too revenue driven and is taking us away from our mission, where the reward might not be that great for parks, aligning our mission and keeping people excited about outdoor recreation, accessibility of outdoor recreation, as a return customers. As we're enacting several different rate changes, might be one that I think we should keep an eye on.
Mhm.
Commissioner Prolo, I did want to clarify, the $40,000 was the impact of not waiving day use parking fees for 2 days. In the proposed rule change, we would still waive day use parking fees for Oregon residents for State Parks Day. The proposed change is not waiving camping fees for State Parks Day, which would be a higher revenue impact because it's pretty much every site we have is reserved on that day, and we receive no revenue for all of those reservations.
I agree with that. I agree with not waiving camping fees and things of that sort on Oregon Parks days. But I don't, maybe I wasn't tracking that parking is continued to being waived on that. So I'm delighted to hear if I wasn't tracking that. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie, for clarifying that for us. Any other comments or thoughts or questions? I do want to acknowledge the number of comments that came in around the special access pass eligibilities. Again, this is not something this commission takes lightly in terms of changing accessibility and the benefits that access to nature and our park system provides to this unique group of users. And it's all in alignment with us trying to balance our budget. And as so many of the commissioners on here have stated, our system is funded through user fees and through lottery dollars. And until we get the legislature or somebody else to step up and help us solve these problems, these financial problems, we can't, we really have to be judicious in figuring out how we solve our own problems and how we fill the gaps and the buckets that need to be filled. And so, I do think that going from 10 nights to 4 nights is a fair and reasonable change. Would we love it to stay 10 nights and have an abundance of funding to help support those free nights of camping? Absolutely. And if that's something that, Oregonians are really find very valuable and important, I would encourage them to reach out to their legislators and help us find some solutions and funding as we go forward, since the lottery dollars don't seem to be increasing annually. So, with that, I just wanted to acknowledge that it's hard for all of us, but it's also something we need to do if we're going to continue to maintain the system that we have. So with that, unless there's other questions, concerns, thoughts, comments, I think we can go ahead and move forward on a motion. And the motion that's set before us is to amend OAR 736-015-0006 to 736-015-0040 for reservations, rates, and fee waivers as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Spence. Can I get a second?
Second.
Commissioner Griggs. Are there any further comments? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, no. Any abstentions? All right. Hearing none, the amendments to the rules are approved. Again, I know it's a hard one to end on. It's not something we love to do, but we're hopefully strengthening our park system as we're moving forward on this and can find some solutions as well. And the staff has done an amazing job, and I want to acknowledge that in identifying these savings as well as doing all the work and research on data. And so Katie, Caleb, thank you, but everybody else in the room and outside of the room, thank you so much for all your hard work in doing this. I know it's not easy for you guys either. It's not something you love to do. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Hill. I will pass that on to the rest of the staff who worked on this.
All right. With that, I think that is the end of our agenda. I'm looking at Stephanie to make sure I'm not missing anything.
Nope.
All
Yep,
right.
we're good.
All right. So the remainder of the items are just information only. I do want to flag, we do have our next commission meeting, April 21st and 22nd. That's going to be virtual again. I think we're going to stay virtual through June, and then hopefully in September we can all come together and meet. But we are also doing our part to save the department some funding by doing this virtually. So hopefully, we will be able to meet and especially to meet Commissioner Griggs in person, which would be lovely. But that'll be soon. So, all right. Is there anything else for the good of the order? All right. Well, thank you guys, and thank you all for spending your time this morning doing this important work. And we'll see you in April.